भी अपना नाम मत लेना पढ़ने के लिए। नहीं डर। हाँ कुछ
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept our humble obeisances.
Jai, please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, our last class today together. We'll get started with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtapraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So welcome everyone to today's class. We're going to be covering chapter 12. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Woohoo! Been a long journey for Dhruva Maharaj. He's been through a lot here. He's had a full life. So let's see, we'll start here with text 1. Maitreya Vacha Dhruvam Nivritam Pratibudya Vaishashad Apetamanyum Bhagavandaneshvara Tatragatascharana Yakshakinnarai Samstuyamano Nyavadat Kritanjalim. Someone please read the translation.
The great sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidush, Dhruva Maharaj's anger subsided, and he completely ceased killing yakshas. When Kuver, the most blessed master of the treasury, learned this news, he appeared before Dhruv. While being worshipped by yakshas, kinnaras and charanas, he spoke to Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands."
Thank you. Yeah, so Kuvera, he heard the news that Dhruva had stopped fighting. So we see here that the higher planetary systems, they have their means of communication by which Kuvera somehow got to know what's going on Earth. We can also imagine that because he's the leader of the yakshas, that he's paying attention to them, right? Just as a good leader will pay attention to whoever's under their care. So Kuvera is very happy that Dhruva stopped fighting, and he went there. You can imagine that the yakshas were very happy to see him because they were just going through this huge dilemma, this crisis of being, slaughtered. So many, they've lost so many of them. So, and now that the fighting stopped, now that Dhruva stopped, then they were probably very relieved. And then with the speak of seeing their leader, Kuvera, coming to console them, and he must have been very happy. So they were worshiping, all the yakshas came out and they were worshiping Kuvera. It says with prayers, Samstu Yamano, so they were offering prayers to him. And Dhruva Maharaj was also there with folded hands, Krita Anjalim. And Dhruva was really taking the humble position here because remember the end of the last chapter, Swayambhuva Manu was telling him that, not only have you really gotten out of control and killed many innocent yakshas, but you've also agitated the mind of Kuvera and even Lord Shiva. He said, and you have to pacify them. So Dhruva was already like, oh no, when you find out that you offended a great personality unknowingly by something that you did, you're like, oh no, now I really have to take the humble position, approach the person, ask for forgiveness. So this was Dhruva's attitude when he saw Kuvera. So he didn't have to go to Kuvera. Luckily, the Lord arranged that Kuvera came to him. And so he was just feeling, I am so sorry for whatever distress I caused you. So let's see how Kuvera is going to respond here. Please read text 2.
The master of the treasury, Kuvera, said, "O sinless son of a Kshatriya, I am very glad to know that under this instruction of your grandfather, you have given up your enmity. Although it is very difficult to avoid, I am very pleased with you."
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a sign of a great personality that, Kuvera doesn't dwell on Dhruva's fault. He doesn't say, I can't believe how you just mercilessly murdered so many of my followers when they were in, he doesn't like focus on that, but instead he focuses on, I'm so happy that you stopped fighting. I'm so happy that, you've given up your enmity, that you've actually understood and applied the instructions of your grandfather. So this is a good example for us that we shouldn't, we all come to Krishna consciousness from different backgrounds. We've done so much nonsense in our lives, before becoming devotees. And maybe even after we become devotees, we still do some nonsense sometimes. But we shouldn't condemn devotees for their faults. Instead, we should congratulate them on whatever their current progress is. Focus on, it's so good that you stopped doing that. It's so good that now you're taking instruction, that you're progressing. Even if somebody was really, very sinful before, if they were, like an alcoholic or something, don't look at them like a former alcoholic. Look at them as somebody who's had such an incredible victory, over their past habits, who's like really transformed amazingly and become a new person and taken up this beautiful, wonderful new life of bhakti and is flourishing and thriving. So we should really, focus on the positive things and always give positive appreciation to devotees. And that will be good for them and good for us, and create a nice mood in our communities. Okay, so Kuvera sets a good example in that respect. Please read text 3.
Actually, you have not killed the yakshas, nor have they killed your brother. For the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord.
Right, so this is another feature of Kuvera's greatness, that even though he is the Lord of wealth, he's called the Dhana Ishvara. So that word Ishvara is there, and especially people who have a lot of wealth, they really consider themselves the Ishvara, that with my money, I can do anything. So many people are worshiping me and serving me because I have money. So, apart from the Supreme Personality God himself, no one has more wealth than Kuvera. But still, he doesn't think of himself as the controller. He recognizes that the ultimate cause of everything is the Lord, is Krishna. And so he excuses Dhruva Maharaj on this basis, that, the cause of everything is Krishna. Krishna's controlling everything. Actually, you didn't kill the yakshas. It was all the plan of the Lord. And Swayambhuva Manu had told Dhruva Maharaj the same thing, but other way around. The yakshas didn't kill your brother. It all happened by the influence of the Lord's Kala Shakti. And now Kuvera is saying the same thing. You haven't killed the yakshas. It all happened by the Lord's Kala Shakti. So this shows how great minds think alike. Great personalities, they all understand the same thing, that nothing is happening except by the will of the Lord, and that we are not the doers. Rukmini, Hari Sevani.
Mataji, this is little difficult for me to understand. Yes, I accepted that everything, whatever happens, that happens by the will of the Lord. Krishna sanctions, so it happens. Now, Mataji, I want to ask that the action or reaction that is in my hand. Dhruva Maharaj got angry, as we can see. So these, if I see in my life, so that is how I will generate my karma. So if I get angry and like this, so Mataji, how to understand that, like that in the life of Parikshit Maharaj, whatever happened, that was totally Krishna's wish. So in this way also, this is like the seniors, like they are Mahajans. So, what about my life? If I talk about my personal life, if I do something wrong, that is my fault. So how to understand that whatever I'm doing, yes, that is the will for me of Krishna. So, but I'm not above the 3 modes of material nature. I'm still conditioned, so I make mistakes also. So for that, I'm responsible.
So what happens is that it's not that we don't have free will, right? We still have free will, even though everything happens by Krishna's will, we still have our free will. So that's where sometimes it's hard to understand. So what happens is that we have our desires, things that we want to do, things we want to experience, things that we want. So Krishna steers us according to our desires and according to our karma. So, we can't fulfill our desires independently. We have all these desires. We can't do anything about it. But Krishna from within the heart, he gives us inspirations, and he, gives us ideas and pushes us in certain directions. Oh, this is what you want? Then do this. Talk to this person. Go here, go there. So we do that. And the modes of material nature, they also work under Krishna's direction, right? Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. That this material nature is working under Krishna's supervision. So, yeah, we are influenced by the modes, but those modes are controlled by Krishna. So ultimately, it's Krishna. That's what Kuvera is saying, is that in the ultimate issue, the ultimate cause for everything is the Supreme Lord. So, you understand? So that's why we have to be careful what we desire, because if we desire some material thing, Krishna, Parma will be like, all right, go ahead then. This is what you need to do to get your material thing. But still, we'll only get it to the extent that we have the karma to get it, right? The good karma, pious credits to get good things in our lives. And then the bad things we'll try to avoid, but we can only avoid them to the extent that we don't have the bad karma that forces us to suffer them. But that karma also came about as a reaction to our previous desires and choices that we made. So we always have choices. But the thing is that Krishna is still our best friend, even when we make bad choices, and even when Paramatma unwillingly sanctions us to engage in, sinful or offensive or behavior or just mundane behavior. But there's a built-in like correctional facility there, that we'll do something wrong and then we'll suffer, or, we'll learn a lesson from that. And so we won't do that thing again, hopefully, if we're intelligent. So all this is happening by Krishna's inconceivable wisdom and arrangement.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, so all the great personalities understand this, that Krishna is the ultimate cause. Swambhuva Manu said it, Kuvera said it, devotees say these things all the time. Krishna himself says it. So it's unanimous. We just have to accept the absolute truth coming from all different authorities. All right, let's read texts 4 to 6.
Misidentification of oneself and others as I and you on the basis of the bodily concept of life is a product of ignorance. This bodily concept is the cause of repeated birth and death, and it makes us go on continuously in material existence. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction. Begin therefore to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Engage yourself fully, therefore, in the devotional service of the Lord, for only He can deliver us from this entanglement of materialistic existence. Although the Lord is attached to His material potency, He is aloof from her activities. Everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's kind of sweet here. He says, my dear Dhruva, come forward. You can imagine that Dhruva, he's feeling like, oh no, I'm an offender. He's keeping a distance, but the Kuvera is like, come closer. It's okay. He wants to instruct him. So what is he instructing him here? This same point again, misidentification of oneself and others as I and you on the bodily concept is a product of ignorance. So he literally says, he starts that verse text 4 with aham tvam. This aham, I, tvam, you, consciousness is very problematic. He says, aham tvam ityapartha dir. Apartha means it's misconceived. And then agyanat, it's literally not knowledge, like thinking that I am me and you are you and we're totally separate from each other. This is not knowledge. This is just ignorance. And he goes on to say, swapni, that it's like a dreamlike state of consciousness. It's like you're living in a dream world. If you think that thinking in terms of I and you and we and them and us and them, friends and enemies, this is just a dream world. It's not really like that. And this bodily concept of life is bandha, it's the cause of bondage, and viparyayo, misery. So he's really making it very clear what the situation is. And then Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that this aham tvam consciousness comes from forgetfulness of Krishna. Because if we remember Krishna, and that you and I, aham and tvam, are both parts and parcels of Krishna, then we'll understand that we're both non-different from Krishna. And therefore we're non-different from each other. So this is, achintya bheda abheda tattva, that we're eternally individuals, but at the same time, we're non-different from each other. So it's just like the foot and the hand are different. They look different, they do different functions, but they're both the body. You can't say that the hand is not the body. They're all parts of the body. And they can't function independently from the body. Or like a leaf and a twig on a tree, they're different, but they're both the tree, and they can't function independently of the whole tree. So similarly, you and I are different, but there's very much a sense in which we are both Krishna, and we can't function independently of Krishna. So you might think that, now Prabhupada Priya has become a Mayavadi. I'm going to share that we're all Krishna. I'm Krishna, you're Krishna, I'm you, you're me, we're all the same. But Srila Prabhupada actually talks about this. Do I have share screen? I do. Let me see. I'm going to share
Yes,
here.
Mataji, you have.
Oops, I'm going to share this. Let me see. No, this is not the one that I want to share. Hard. Sorry. I think I don't have it open properly. Okay. I want to share this with you just so you don't think that I'm making this up. So this is Bhagavad Gita 9:17. And Krishna is saying this verse here, he says, I'm the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I'm the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I'm also the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. So Prabhupada comments here. The entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as our father, mother, grandfather, creator, etc., but actually they are parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father, mother, etc., are nothing but Krishna. In this verse, the word Data means creator. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother, grandfather, etc., are also Krishna. Actually, any living being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. All the Vedas, therefore, aim only towards Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step towards understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify our constitutional position is especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and as such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om, called Pranava, is a transcendental sound vibration and is also Krishna. And because in the hymns of the four Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, the Pranava or Omkara is prominent, is understood to be Krishna. So you can see there are many senses in which, so although there's you and there's me, but because we're parts and parcels of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we are also Krishna. And we can't function independently of Krishna. So this is the essence of, Kuvera's instructions here. And I just want to look at how this is because, Prabhupada spoke so strongly against impersonalism and Mayavadi philosophy that we tend, as members of ISKCON, followers of Srila Prabhupada, we tend to really also focus on the differences. Like, we are different, we are individuals eternally, we are so far from Krishna. Krishna is great and infinite, and we are infinitesimal and all that. But it's actually very important for us to understand that there's also a oneness. So I want to focus a little more on this. And as I was thinking on this topic, so many verses from Bhagavad Gita came to my head, because especially Kuvera is telling Dhruva, give up the duality of I and you, us and them, friend and enemy, and just turn to Krishna. So then I was like, well, according to Bhagavad Gita 18:54, it's only by giving up the duality, only by seeing all living beings equally, that we can even do bhakti at all. Because he says, Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param, that in that state of transcendental consciousness, in which one is happy, one doesn't hanker or lament, and one sees all living entities as equal on the spiritual platform, then one can attain to the highest state of bhakti. So then how do we come to that state of seeing the oneness, the spiritual oneness of all? So one way is by knowing that everything comes from Krishna. And Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita 10:8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So knowing that everything comes from Krishna and ultimately is Krishna's energies, or is Krishna, then, if we're wise, then we can engage in devotional service. And the wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts, Krishna says. So then another place where Krishna talks about this in Bhagavad Gita is 4:35. So right after the famous verse, that just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from submissively, render service. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge because they've seen the truth. So then he says that Yajgyatva na punar mohan evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutan yesheshani drakshyashyatman yato mai. That he says that after obtaining this knowledge, after really understanding the truth, from one who is tattvadarshinaha, the self-realized soul, then you'll never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you'll see that all living beings are but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they're mine. So you'll see that all living beings are basically not different from me. They're just they're all parts of me. They're not separate from me because they're mine. And another way that we can come to this kind of consciousness is just by coming to the mode of goodness. So in 18:20, it's described how Krishna describes that in the mode of goodness we see the one undivided spiritual nature in all living entities. So even though there's so many different living entities and their different bodies and their different personalities, he says sarva bhuteshu yena ekam. He said that there's a oneness. There's one ekam bhava. He said that there's a one nature, one undivided spiritual nature. Yeah, one nature which is avyayam. It's imperishable. And the person in the mode of goodness sees that although there are so many different living entities, vibhakti, bhakti in this case means divided. So he says vibhakteshu, even though they're divided in so many ways from each other, still they're avibhaktam, they're undivided. And that this is jnanam, this is real knowledge in the mode of goodness. Jnanam vidi tat jnanam vidi sattvikam. So, and if we see differently, if we focus on the differences, if we see that in every living entity, there's like a different, there's just a different thing, that they're totally different from each other, then that's knowledge in the mode of passion. But mode of goodness is this ekam bhavam, seeing the one undivided spiritual nature. And so, yeah, when we stop focusing so much on the differences between different living entities, when we're free from this duality of aham, tvam, then only we can perform devotional service with determination. And that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, Te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajate mam dridavrataha. So when we're free, nirmukta, when we're liberated from this dvandva, duality, which is actually moha, it's delusional, it's an illusion, it's bewildering. We get bewildered by this I and you and us and them and friends and enemies, and it bewilders us just like Dhruva was bewildered. And we also get bewildered, and then we don't know how to treat people properly. We can't see the other's connection with Krishna. But when we understand the oneness, then we can become very peaceful and steady, steadfast. We don't get upset like Dhruva got upset. Like he was very angry, he was really angry in two scenarios because of dvandva. So when te dvandva moha nirmukta, then bhajate mam dridavrataha. Then we don't get upset about these things. We can just perform devotional service with determination. Yeah, I mean, this dvandva is the whole, just like it was the cause of all the troubles in Dhruva's life, it's also the cause of our troubles in this material world. It's the whole reason that we came to this material world. And that's what Krishna says in the previous verse in Bhagavad Gita 7:27, that Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani samoham sarge yante parantapa. The whole creation, the whole sarga is due to dvandva. It's due to us seeing ourselves as different from others, different from Krishna. We're in the spiritual world and Krishna's doing something and we're thinking, I want to do my own thing. I want to do something different because I'm different. I'm not him. I don't want to, my interest is not his interest. I have a separate interest. And so we have to go to a separate world. And so there's sarga and visarga and all these things. And then sarge yanti, we go to that sarga. We take birth in the material creation because of this dvandva mohena. We become deluded by dualities. But when we're free from dualities, then we can perform devotional service with determination. So this is what Kuvera is telling Dhruva. He's saying that give up the duality of I and you and turn to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller. He's the doer. He's the cause. He's the effect. Everything comes from Krishna. Everything's caused by Krishna. Everything is Krishna. There's nothing separate. There's no one separate. And so we just have to serve him. And so, yeah, in text 6, he says this, Bhajasva Bhajani Yangrim. Just serve his lotus feet because he's everything. And that is our self-interest also. Our interest is also Krishna's interest. So, all right, let's go to text 7.
My dear Dhruv Maharaj, son of Maharaj Uttanpad, we have heard that you are constantly engaged in transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known for his lotus navel. You are therefore worthy to take all benedictions from us. Please therefore ask without hesitation whatever benediction you want from me.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, he's saying that you're already famous throughout the universe for your devotional service. So I'm so pleased with you. Just ask any benediction from me. So just imagine this is Kuvera, right? He's the Lord of all the wealth in the material universe. And he's offering anything Dhruva could ask for. And in the beginning, Dhruva was he was that pious person who is arti, who is desiring wealth. So in the beginning, Dhruva was desiring wealth, and now here is the Lord of wealth, the Dana Ishvara. And he's offering any benediction to Dhruva Maharaj. And it's almost like he's testing him, to see, do you still want wealth? Do you still want resources? Do you still want, something within this material world? So we can reflect also on this, that imagine, there's a knock on the door and it's Kuvera, and he's standing at your doorstep and he's saying, I'm so pleased with you that you've taken up Krishna consciousness, that you're studying Srimad Bhagavatam so nicely, that you've been chanting 16 rounds a day for so many years. Please ask any benediction from me. And, would you be tempted, He might say, I can give you $1 billion. I can give you truckloads of gold and jewels. I can give you, anything. I can give you crores of rupees. I can give you a palatial home. What would we ask for? What would you ask for? So let's see what Dhruva asks for. Please read texts 8 to 9.
The great sage Maitra continued, My dear Vidura, when thus asked to accept a benediction from Kuvera, the Yaksharaj, the king of the Yakshas, Dhruv Maharaj, that most elevated pure devotee who was an intelligent and thoughtful king, begged that he might have unflinching faith in and in remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily, although it is very difficult for others to cross.
And read the next one too, please.
The son of Ida Vida, Lord Kuvera, was very pleased, and happily he gave Dhruva Maharaj the benediction he wanted. Therefore, he disappeared from Dhruva's presence, and Dhruva Maharaj returned to his capital city.
Okay. So, Srila Prabhupada he mentions in the purport how Dhruva Maharaj was very intelligent, because he knew that if you ask for things separately from Krishna, you're not going to really get them anyway, or they're not going to last. But that simply by pure devotional service, one can have all the benedictions of this world without separate endeavor. And we actually see that Dhruva, he had some material desires. He went and performed devotional service, and he got his kingdom, and he got all his things. He got his material desires fulfilled. He got his spiritual desires fulfilled. Of course, he repented. He regretted having material desires, but in any case, he got them. Rupa Goswami says the same thing that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that just as the maidservants follow a queen, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha follow pure devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada talks about that, the 4 Purusharthas, but the highest Purushartha is liberation out of the 4, but there's a 5th, there's a Panchama Purushartha, and that is devotional service. So devotional service is the most valuable thing that a human being can obtain. That's what Purushartha literally means. The Purusha means person, and Artha means something valuable. So valuable things to strive for in life. And the highest thing is devotional service. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada refers to this verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati. It's a very beautiful verse from the Chaitanya Chandramrita. We had to memorize this for Bhakti Vedanta. It says that for those who have attained the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya. So now we can see that you can use these parameters to know whether you've actually received the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya. Because if you have, you will view impersonal liberation as hell. Kaivalyam narakayate. You will view the heavenly cities of the demigods like flowers in the sky. Akasha pushpayate. And just useless. Just what's the use of a flower in the sky? It's just like, who cares, right? you will, the poisonous fangs of your snake-like senses will be broken. In other words, the senses will not engage in activities separate from the devotional service of Krishna. So, yeah, not that we don't use the senses, but the poison, they're not poisonous anymore. The poisonous fangs are broken. So, Durdan Tendriya, Kala Sarpa, that's the black snake of the senses. Patali Protkata Damstrayate. Damstrayate means broken, like crushed. And the demigods themselves, like Lord Indra and Brahma, you'll see them as no more significant than insects. Vidhi Mahendradish Cha Kritayate. Kitayate, like worms. Kita means worm. Kitayate. So, yeah. So you see that people who haven't received the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, it's the opposite. You know, they're hankering for impersonal liberation, or they want to go to the heavenly planets as their goal of life, or they want to just go for sense gratification, and they worship the demigods as the all-important bestowers of benedictions that can fulfill all their material desires, and they take them to be very important, even more important than Krishna. And so if you're not like that, that means you've received the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya. So congratulations. It's the best blessing that we can have. Yeah, so a devotee who has the mercy of Lord Chaitanya wants nothing within the three worlds except to remember Krishna, wherever they are, in heaven or hell. So this is what Dhruva asks for. He begged that he might have unflinching faith in and remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one thing to point out here is that although we're just talking about how a person who has gotten Lord Chaitanya's mercy sees the demigods like Indra and Brahma as no more as insignificant as insects, but still Dhruva, he was an advanced devotee, but he was not dismissive towards Kuvera. When Kuvera showed up, he didn't say, I don't worship demigods, you're not Krishna, you're not Lord Vishnu, so get out of here. He wasn't disrespectful, he was very respectful. And he offered his Kritanjali, he offered his reverences. So yeah, one of the 64 angas that Rupa Goswami gives us in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of devotional service is that a devotee should not disrespect the demigods. So sometimes, in ISKCON, we can become a little fanatical that, the demigod worship, the demigods, we can have especially like, if you're coming from a culture where demigod worship is a big thing, and then you come to Krishna consciousness, then it's like, it's kind of like attraction aversion, it's like, I used to be really into demigod worship, but now like, I just like kick all the demigods out of my life. I don't want anything to do with them. Don't say their names. Don't, like that. So we need to be balanced, in this understand that Krishna is the supreme object of worship, but the demigods are also devotees. They're also his servants. And there are instances in which the demigods bless devotees throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. There are instances where, like the gopis, they worship goddess Katyayani, who is Durga Devi, to get Krishna as her husband. So if Kuvera would come knocking on our door, don't tell him, I don't worship demigods, go to the neighbors, they might appreciate you. Say, please, Kuvera, you're such a great personality. You're so dear to Krishna. Please bless me that I can engage in pure devotional service, that I can be fixed in my remembrance and my faith in Krishna. So not that we need to go out of the way to, pray to demigods, but just in case we may encounter a demigod, or, you're on parikram and you happen to go to a temple where there's a deity of a demigod, then now you know what to ask. The same thing that Dhruva asked. Okay, so let's read text 10 and 11.
As long as he remained at home, Dhruv Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. Dhruv Maharaj rendered devotional service unto the Supreme, the reservoir of everything, with unrelenting force. While carrying out his devotional service to the Lord, he could see that everything is situated in him only, and that he is situated in all living entities. The Lord is called Achyuta because he never fails in his prime duty to give protection to his devotees.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, here we're hearing about Dhruva Maharaj's glorious reign over the planet for 36,000 years. He was ruling over the planet, and while he was doing that, he was performing so many sacrifices and giving charity for the benefit of all the citizens. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Dhruva Maharaj never spent a single farthing for his own sense gratification, but instead he emptied the treasury. He emptied his royal treasury through giving charity to the citizens. So this is very different from politicians nowadays, right? Prime ministers and presidents, they tend to, try to, it's the opposite. They try to get the treasury for themselves as much as they can during their term of office. It's like, either legally or illegally. So we see there's a lot of corruption and a lot of selfish interest amongst our so-called leaders. But Dhruva Maharaj, it was totally the opposite. He didn't spend a farthing for his personal sense gratification. So yeah, Prabhupada talks about how it's the duty of Kshatriyas and also Vaishyas to perform yajna and dana. But then he says that in this age, the yajna, of course, is Sankirtan yajna, Harinam Sankirtan, and the dana, or charity, is mass distribution of prasadam. So I'm here right now in Gainesville, Florida, and Srila Prabhupada came here. He spent one day here in 1971. And during that time, the devotees had just started a program of going to the university campus and doing kirtan and distributing prasadam. And that's going on to the present day. It's been going on for 51 years. Every single day that classes are in session, devotees there doing kirtan, distributing prasadam. So right now we distribute an average of 1,000 plates a day to the college students, university students. So it's a really nice program. But when Prabhupada came, he gave an instruction. He said, just chant Hare Krishna loudly in Sankirtan and distribute prasadam, and all success will be there. So based on that instruction, which the devotees just made that their mission here in Gainesville, that we're going to chant Hare Krishna loudly and distribute prasadam. So that's been the program here. It's a very ecstatic program, and many devotees have joined from that program and are very happy in Krishna consciousness, and the project has been successful and is expanding. So Prabhupada, his benediction bore fruit. So yeah, I mean, in text 10, Prabhupada says that through these two activities, through yajna and dana, to sacrifice and charity, the whole world can become peaceful and prosperous. So we just need to keep going out doing Harinam Sankirtan wherever we have an opportunity or a venue to do so, and distribute prasadam. And by that, the whole world, not just our own communities, but the whole world will become peaceful and prosperous. So yeah, and in text 11, we see that Dhruva Maharaj, he didn't perform sacrifices like the Karmakandis do, but he did everything in Bhakti Yoga. It was all devotional service. So yeah, Bhakti, the word Bhakti is literally mentioned in this verse. And not just casual Bhakti, but like that verse from Bhagavatam 2nd Canto, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. So it says, Tivrogam Bhaktim Udvahan. That really forceful, yeah, Tivra Ogam means with unrelenting force. His devotional service was with unrelenting force. So he was performing really strong, intense devotional service. And by this, he became an Uttama Adhikari, or a Mahabhagavat. So he was, by his intense devotional service, he was actually able to come to that platform that Swayambhuva Manu and that Kuvara were telling him, of seeing Krishna everywhere, that everything is situated in Krishna only, in the Lord, and that the Lord is situated in all living entities, and that the Lord always protects his devotees. So, this vision is only possible when we have love for Krishna, right? Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. When we have love for Krishna, then we can see Shama Sundar within our hearts and within the hearts of everyone. And we'll be able to treat everyone with love, right? Because when we love Krishna and we understand that everyone are parts and parcels of Krishna, then we'll love everyone because they're all non-different from Krishna. So that's why Dhruva was able to love and care for all of his citizens just like a father. And it's mentioned that they also loved him back. They considered him their father, and they felt very safe and satisfied with him as their protector. So in that way, everything was going on very nicely. Oh, that's actually the next verse. That's okay. Let's read text 12 and 13.
Dhruv Maharaj was endowed with all godly qualities. He was very respectful to the devotees of the Supreme Lord and very kind to the poor and innocent, and he protected religious principles. With all these qualifications, he was considered to be the direct father of all the citizens. Dhruv Maharaj ruled over this planet for 36,000 years. He diminished the reactions of pious activities by enjoyment, and by practicing austerities, he diminished inauspicious reactions.
Okay, go ahead and read one more, please.
This self-controlled great soul Dhruv Maharaj thus passed many years favorably executing three kinds of worldly activities, namely religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of all material desires. Thereafter, he handed over the charge of the royal throne to his son.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is interesting because although we see that Dhruva is already like on this Mahabhagavat platform, seeing Krishna everywhere, and although he was no longer interested in any material activity, he still ruled the kingdom very expertly. It says, performing all the things, for religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of all material desires. So this reminded me of what Lord Chaitanya told Raghunath Das Goswami, that internally fix your mind on me with devotion, but externally perform your material duties very perfectly. So this seems to be what Dhruva Maharaj is doing, right? Internally, he's like on the Uttama Adhikari platform. He's seeing everyone as, part and parcel of Krishna. He's seeing Krishna in everywhere. He's totally Krishna conscious. And he understands that, this material world it's just temporary. Material activities are useless. He doesn't want anything from this world. And yet he's still engaged in all kinds of activities in ruling the state, governing the citizens. We saw, right? He was fighting against the yakshas. So he's engaging in all of these things, and he's doing it very expertly, very favorably, in such a way that all the citizens are satisfied and pleased and feel fully protected. So he's not like, I'm just going to go off and, chant 128 rounds a day and, who cares about the kingdom anyways? It's all just Maya. It's all just the material world. And I don't want to think about, money and conflict and, economics and sense gratification anymore. And so, but he does. So in the same way, as devotees, we have our responsibilities. We have responsibilities for family. We have responsibilities in our jobs. If we have leadership responsibilities in temples, then, there are things that we need to deal with, like the maintenance of the building care of the devotees, logistics for preaching programs and things. So we can't just be like, oh, everything's Krishna, and even though it is, but still we need to be expert and have material skills for achieving things in this world. And so Dhruva sets a really good example of how to be perfectly Krishna conscious, but at the same time expert in managing our lives in this world, and especially taking responsibilities for others, and what all that entails, and doing it really perfectly. So it's a great example for leaders, especially managers who have to deal with all kinds of things. Okay, let's read 15 and 16.
Srila Dhruva Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria, because it is the creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. The Dhruva Maharaj at the end left his kingdom, which extended all over the earth and was bounded by the great oceans. He considered his body, his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury, his very comfortable palaces, and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds to be creation of the illusionary energy. Thus, in course of time, he retired to the forest in the Himalayas known as Badrikashram.
Right. So we can see that, although he does see that all these things are Maya, he was, doing his responsibilities and interacting with all these things very expertly. But because he had the vision, because he was actually, Tattva Darshinaha, he was actually seeing the truth of the situation. He wasn't getting bewildered by these things, because all these things, palace, body, wife, children, friends, army, treasury, comfortable palace, they can be very bewildering. But Dhruva Maharaj he wasn't bewildered by them. He could see them for what they are, just the Lord's illusory energy. So he could work with them without becoming attached to them. So when the time was right, when he was, older, and when his son was grown up and ready to take over the kingdom, just like his own father, he left so that he could just fully devote himself to his Krishna consciousness, which he had all along. So it's just, I thought it was interesting that as a child, he was so dead set on getting a kingdom. And now he got the kingdom, and in the end, he realizes that his kingdom is simply Maya. It's just a temporary, dreamlike existence, and he can very easily give it up. So that's a nice thing about, in Bhakti, there's Pravritti Marg and there's Nivritti Marg. So Nivritti Marg means that you just don't go there, you just don't engage with the world. But Pravritti Marg means that you get into it, you get married, you have a family, you have a house, you have your responsibilities, you earn money, you engage with the world, but you do so as a devotee. And then the result of that is that you realize that these things are all Maya and you can leave them. So for anyone who has desires to, engage with these kinds of activities, that's okay, as long as it's connected to Krishna. It will be a process of purification. It's still, Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg are both, the Bhakti Marg. They're both different. They're different ways of practicing Bhakti and advancing. And it's not that one is necessarily better than the other, but it's just, it depends on what the individual needs, right? Everyone has to take their own medicine to cure their own disease. And maybe someone who can just go straight to Nivritti Marg, just be brahmachari and then go straight into sannyas with skipping Grihastha ashram. They probably did Grihastha ashram in previous lifetime, many lifetimes. They figured out that, what it is, and that it's not desirable. But for those that still thinking that there's something that's going to make me happy and I really need to be in that situation, then it's good to go through it. Like, don't shy away from it. Be like, okay, this is what we're doing, and I'm going to do this with Krishna, and then by the end of it, we can actually become very detached and just be like, all right, got married, I had my kids, I raised my kids, I earned money, I paid off my house, the kids can have it, I'm out of here. You know, and it's so liberating. It's such an accomplishment, you know, when you go through that in your life. It's something really to be grateful for, you know, that you had that experience, that Krishna gave you a Krishna conscious Grihastha ashram so that you could fulfill your desires and understand that you don't desire them anymore. You know, it's like you're free from it now. So yeah, Krishna conscious Grihastha ashram is very powerful in that sense. That, you know, you might go into it with burning desire, you know, passionate desire, and you come out of it just like, Hare Krishna, I'm good. Jagat Mata Sachi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Mataji, we have desires, and same times we know that these desires can bind us in this world, and Krishna fulfill all the desires. So we are afraid of our desires, but still desires come. How can we relate to it? How can we understand this?
Well, yeah, that's how it is, you know. As long as we're in the material world, these desires are going to come into our minds. It's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that just like rivers incessantly flow into the ocean, but desires are going to incessantly come into our minds. But as the ocean is not disturbed by the rivers, continuous flow of the rivers into them, and so the mind of a devotee is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires. So we just have to see, you know, we just have to live with it. You know, as long as we're as long as we have material desires, the senses are gonna, you know, try to push us in this direction, that direction. I need this, I want this. We just have to observe it and be like, all right, I have this desire. So what? You know, I'm not actually the material body. I don't really actually need that thing. You know, we have to have a philosophical understanding, and that helps. Or we can, that enables us to tolerate the desire. Otherwise, we can try to connect the desire in Krishna consciousness, right? So I have a desire to have children. Great. Marry a devotee, have children in Krishna consciousness, do, you know, the 50 rounds and Garbhadam Samskara, raise your children in Krishna consciousness so that they can become like Dhruva and go back to Godhead. And it will be, you'll get purified in the process. So Krishna is pure. Krishna is all pure, and can purify anything. So whatever desire we have, if we connect it with him through his service, then that desire will become purified, and it will be removed. Yeah, Priya Satyabhama.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat. Mataji, I want to Nivritti Auntie always told that we have to follow Nivritti Marg and don't have to go towards the Pravritti Marg. Could you just...
So your voice is breaking up. Can you start from the beginning?
May Mataji, then I have bad network. Maybe I can ask after the class if that's okay.
Yeah, or type it in the chat or something. Okay. All right, so Dhruva Maharaj left home and he went to Badrik Ashram. So let's find out what he did there. Someone please read 17 and 18.
In Badrik Ashram, Dhruva Maharaj's senses became completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way, his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus meditating upon him entered into complete trance. Because of his transcendental bliss, incessant tears flowed from his eyes, his heart melted, and there was shivering and standing of the hairs all over his body. Thus transformed in a trance of devotional service, Dhruva Maharaj completely forgot his bodily existence, and thus he immediately became liberated from material bondage.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's interesting because we see that Dhruva Maharaj now he practices basically the same method that he did before when he went there to Mahavan on the order of Narada Muni when he was 5 years old. And he told him, bathe in the Yamuna and get in a sitting position, control your breathing, make a deity, worship the deity. So he's doing the same exact process that he learned from Narada Muni. So it's not that there's a different process. Like for us, Prabhupada gave us a process, 16 rounds a day, 4 regular principles, Mangalarti, try to spread Krishna consciousness to others, worship the deity, right? It's the same process at every stage of life, whether you're 5 years old, whether you're 65 years old, whether you're a king ruling a kingdom, whether you're a renunciant living at Badrik Ashram, it's the same process. So that's, comforting. We don't have to change what we're doing. We just need to keep doing what we're doing. And of course, do it more conscientiously, doing it with more intensity, more internally. So we see that's Dhruva's, although he's doing the same process, now because Dhruva Maharaj is mature, he's mature in his devotion, and he's been through a lot of purification throughout his life. He's gotten a lot of good association with, devotees like Kuvera, like Swayambhuva Manu, who have reaffirmed everything that Narada Muni taught him. And so now he's experiencing very wonderful results that are described in text 18. So it says, in the first line here, it talks about the quality and the focus of his meditation, that Bhaktim Haro Bhagavati Pravahan Ajashram. So his bhakti starts with bhakti, the very first line of the verse. So it's, he's doing bhakti. And to Hari, unto Lord Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavati. And the quality Pravahan, constantly engaging in. Ajashram, always. So it's very emphatic. We have 2 words that are like always, constantly. He's not doing anything else. And the results of this are that Ananda, he's feeling blissful. And then he's experiencing these, ecstatic symptoms like Bashpa Kalaya, streaming with tears, Klidyamana Hridaya, melting of the heart, Pulaka, standing of the bodily hairs on end, and ultimately Mukta Linga, becoming free from the subtle body. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about this state of becoming free from the gross and subtle bodies. And he uses an analogy of a dry coconut. So, actually in the West, we don't have this dry coconut that's totally separate. But in India, you have that if you leave the coconut to dry, like completely dry, then you can get the coconut out of the shell like whole. You open it and like if the coconut is green, then everything is still attached. The brown part of the shell is attached to the covering, the outer covering, all that fibery part, it's all covered. The white part is also attached. Everything is attached. But then as it ripens, then it starts to pull away. And if you let it dry to the extent that even the water inside of the coconut is dried out, and it's just like a totally dry coconut, you've probably seen those where the white part of the coconut is not white anymore. It's kind of brown and it's very oily. It's super oily. If you squeeze it, you get like oil coming out of it. You don't get when it's like just like fresh coconut like that. So with that coconut, if you crack it, you can even, if you shake it, you can hear the white part moving around like clunk, 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 clunk. And then you break it and it comes out like just like a ball, like a whole thing. So that's what it's talking about here, is that dry coconut, that by practicing bhakti, the soul, the self, we in our spiritual identity begin to, the attachment to the body, the gross and subtle body slackens. We gradually become detached. So the gross body is like the outside of the coconut, like the green covering and all the fiber, that's like the gross body. And then the brown hard shell inside, the inner shell, that's like the subtle body. So, sometimes you can buy a coconut, like if you go to the market, you'll get the coconut that the outer shell has been taken off. The gross body, it's already left its gross body, but it still has a subtle body. So that's like, when we leave the time of so-called death, when we leave the body, the subtle body takes us to another gross body. So we're still not in a liberated state. We're still like stuck in the subtle body. But when that outer brown shell is broken, then it's just the coconut. So in that state, then we're totally detached. There's no more subtle body to take us to another body, and so there's no more rebirth. And so that's the state of mukta linga, being totally liberated from all kinds of gross and subtle bodies, and then we can go back to Godhead, because there's nothing holding us here in the material world. So yeah, bhakti is very powerful. It can break that connection. And a person who has experienced this, then even in the material world, they can be jivan mukta. They can be living this material world, but living in their spiritual body, even within this, outer thing. They're identifying with their spiritual body. They're like an awakened, self-realized soul who understands their eternal relationship with Krishna. And they may be operating with a material body and doing, so-called material things in the world, but they have they're aware of, they have another identity. Their identity is something else. People see them one way, but they see themselves as something different, something totally different. Others can't see that. Others don't know how they see themselves, but they're just kind of like, like in disguise, going around in disguise, doing their things in this material world while they're internally absorbed in a totally different identity and activities and state of consciousness. So yeah, devotional service can bring that about. Okay, let's see what happens next here with Dhruva Maharaj. So now he's totally detached from his gross and subtle bodies. He's basically ready to go back to Godhead. So text 19 and 20, please.
As soon as the symptoms of his liberation were manifest, he saw a very beautiful airplane coming down from the sky, as if the brilliant full moon were coming down, illuminating all the 10 directions. Dhruv Maharaj saw two very beautiful associates of Lord Vishnu in the plane. They had 4 hands and a blackish bodily luster. They were very youthful, and their eyes were just like reddish lotus flowers. They held clubs in their hands, and they were dressed in very attractive garments with helmets, and were decorated with necklaces, bracelets, and earrings.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as soon as Dhruva attained this state of liberation in which he was ready to go back to Godhead, then the flower airplane came down. So I think it's I just was thinking of that now, that there's one great personality, I don't know if it's Lord Chaitanya himself or one follower of one of Lord Chaitanya's devotees, that somebody says that you're already liberated, and they say, I'm not liberated yet, otherwise why would I still be here? I would have died long ago if I was liberated, right? Because as soon as you're ready to go back to Godhead, that's it, you just go. But of course we know that there are liberated souls who stay, who they're already liberated, but the flower airplane didn't come yet, because the Lord wants them to stay in this world to fulfill his mission in this world, right? There's many pure devotees, Mahabhagavats within our movement, within ISKCON, who are definitely Jivan Mukta souls, but it's pretty clear that Krishna wants them to stay here a little longer. Like Srila Prabhupada himself, he was in Nitya Siddha from the spiritual world, so there's no question of him not being liberated at any time, but still, Krishna kept him here in the material world for his whole life to do his mission. So that may be the situation with many devotees. So we can't say that, there are no liberated souls in the world, because if they were liberated, they would have left. They would have gone back to Godhead. No, Krishna might decide to keep them according to his plan, because even he sends liberated souls here, so he might keep some liberated souls here too. That's just logical. So see, we're doing text 19. Yeah, so here we see these two beautiful Vishnu Dutas, Nanda and Sunanda. They come in this brilliant Vimana, spiritual airplane, to take Dhruva Maharaj back to Godhead. So you can imagine, I mean, this must be so wonderful for Dhruva Maharaj. You know, he's been ruling his kingdom, meditating on the Lord. And now it's like, oh, the plane's coming, he's getting picked up, and, you know, like taxi service back to Godhead. Such a wonderful thing. Rukmini, Hari Sevani.
Mataji, what is the Sarupa of Dhruv Maharaj in Vaikuntha planets? Is he in Golok Vrindavan or in spiritual sky like a Vaikuntha, or does, as we know that he got the Dhruva Lok, so he always stays there only?
That's my understanding. Yeah, that he stays there. We hear that he goes in his same body. So his body gets spiritualized. We're going to see that in a minute. So he doesn't like, so it seems that that body becomes his eternal transcendental form, and that he eternally resides in the Vaikuntha planet in this world, which is the pole star, serving Lord Vishnu there with awe and reverence. So that's his mode. Whether he has another, you know, because we know that sometimes devotees have, can be in one lila and another lila, whether he has another, you know, expanded form in Goloka or something like that, I don't know. I never heard anything about that. Anything's possible, but what we just have to go by what we know here, and that he's on the Vaikuntha planet of Swaitadweep within this universe. Okay, what did we read? 19 and 20. Let's do 21.
Dhruv Maharaj, saying that these uncommon personalities were direct servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately stood up. But being puzzled in hastiness, he forgets how to receive them in the proper way. Therefore, he simply offered obeisances with folded hands and chanted and glorified the holy names of the Lord. Dhruva Maharaj was always absorbed in thinking of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. His heart was full with Krishna. When the two confidential servants of the Supreme Lord, who were named Nanda and Sunanda, approached him, smiling happily, Dhruv stood with folded hands, bowing humbly. They then addressed him as follows.
Okay, stop right there, please. Thank you. Yeah, so Dhruva Maharaj, it says that he recognized them. Seeing these, he knew that they were servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he had seen the Supreme Personality, he had seen Lord Vishnu in his four-armed form. And so when he saw that Nanda and Sunanda, they were coming from Vaikuntha, where everyone has a four-armed form, at least all males, then he could understand that, oh, they're coming from the same place. So he was like, wow, he knew where they were coming from. He knew where they wanted to take him. And he was, but he was overwhelmed with joy, so much so that he forgot the etiquette to receive them. You know, he's thinking, these are amazing personalities that are coming. And he was thinking, I need to offer them some respects, but just like the etiquette wasn't coming to his mind. He couldn't think of any prayers. So it said that he was just kind of stunned, you know, he was just sort of stunned. And so it says that he simply folded his hands and chanted the holy names of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada says that this chanting of the holy names of the Lord was perfect. He didn't have to do anything else. And yeah, so if we're ever in doubt, you know, what to do in any situation, if we become, you know, if a great personality comes and we don't know what to say to them, we can always just fold our hands and say, Hare Krishna, and it's perfect. Just chant the holy names of the Lord. And in services also, you know, whenever it's, especially deity worship, there's so many mantras that you need to chant, so many, like, you know, little rituals and formalities and procedures and things. And Janani Vasparu from Mayapur, when he was teaching the deity worship course there for the Mayapur Academy, like they'll train them in all the different techniques and all the little procedures and things that they need to do for like dressing the deities and all that. and then they'll let them go on the altar, and they'll all get a chance. They'll all get to dress like one of the Ashtasakis or something, and Janivas Prabhu will be supervising them. And so, and after they're assessed on that, and they'll get a grade according to how they did. So there's one student in the class, a friend of mine, and he told me that he was so nervous because he knew that, he was being watched and assessed, and he was trying to do it nicely. And of course, the curtains are going to open. This is for real. Like, the curtains are going to open, the devotees are going to see, how they dress. So he was just really nervous, and he couldn't remember the mantras and things, but he was just he was chanting Hare Krishna the whole time, literally, like from the moment he stepped on the altar or before he got off, he was just chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, and doing everything. And then afterwards, when Janivas Prabhu gave some feedback to them, they said he gave the highest grade, he gave the highest mark to this devotee. And then he said others of you did maybe like dressed more fancy, more elaborate, maybe you recited the mantras more perfectly, but this devotee got the highest grade because he was chanting Hare Krishna nonstop. and that made everything perfect. So that shows, what the priority is that the holy names have to be there in everything that we do. And when Prabhupada was opening the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, he invited all of those leaders of the different Goswami temples, their pujaris, their Brahmins, to come and do all these elaborate rituals that went on for days and days. And Prabhupada said that actually we could install the deities just with kirtan, because the Maha Mantra is everything. The Maha Mantra is Krishna himself. It includes everything, and it makes everything perfect and complete. But we invited these Brahmins to come so that they would accept us, because if we just did kirtan and put the deities there, they would never accept us. They would think that this whole thing was just, bogus, it was watered down. The deities weren't installed properly. Krishna didn't actually enter the deity. It's just a stone there then. And so, yeah, but actually kirtan is enough. Kirtan is everything we need. All we need to do is just chant Hare Krishna. Everything else is just additional. But the substance is the Hare Krishna mantra. Rukmini.
Mataji, as Dhruv Maharaj is going back home, back to Godhead. So, Mataji, you please forgive me if I ask the wrong question. I'm gonna ask the question beyond my level, but I don't want to lose this chance to ask this from you. So, Mataji, Mataji, there is a Gopi Bhav and there is a Manjari. So higher is a Rupa Manjari. And can you please tell that, I tell you rightly, I have there is one devotee who is initiated from ISKCON Guru, one of the gurus, and her husband is from some another, her husband follows some another, but he is a follower of Krishna. So they insulted my friend and said that you follow Manjari Bhav, so you don't do this, we follow Gopi Bhav. Of course, it's not my level, but whatever I have heard little bit, because I haven't read the Acharya's book yet. So they say that gopis are the very near to the Radha and Krishna. They are always engaged to, and gopis are those who says Manjari is to go to Krishna and to serve Krishna and all. Radharani is very pleased when some another Sakhi is serving Krishna like this. This little knowledge I have. So Maji, can you please tell that the higher most is Rupa Manjari. So sorry.
Okay. So there's something wrong with this picture. And you know what that is? It's exactly what we've been talking about. Aham Tvam consciousness. That you're doing Manjari Bhava, we're doing Gopi Bhava. We're better than you because whatever reason they think that they're better. It's the Aham Tvam. And that's why you're not feeling comfortable with it, right? Because that whole thing is just Maya. Aham Tvam. So yeah, and so that's our tendency, even at the higher levels, even like, it sounds like this person is not even qualified to talk about any of these bhavas. Just tell them to go back to Bhagavad Gita and first understand that you're not the body, and that everything is Krishna. what to do. As far as Gopi Baba, Manjari Baba, which one's better, which one's higher, which one are we? The thing is, it's not that everyone in ISKCON is going for a certain bhava, or everyone in another group is going for another bhava. It's like you are who you are, and that's not going to change. So we have our constitutional relationship with Krishna is eternal. We have an eternal identity. So whoever you are, whether you're a gopi or a manjari, you are already that, and it's not going to change. You're just going to awaken, realize yourself. You're going to realize who you are gradually as you continue doing bhakti. And if you're a manjari, you're not going to think that you're better than others. If you're a Saki, you're not going to think that you're better than others. That's just not the Goloka consciousness. That's just like, it does not even enter into the consideration. Everyone is just a servant of everybody else. Nobody thinks themselves better. And then just objectively speaking, what's better for you is just being who you are. And you're going to be totally satisfied with being who you are. If you're a manjari, you're not going to want to be a Saki, even if they have a more intimate relationship with Krishna, even if, they enjoy directly with Krishna and you don't. You're not going to feel like, oh, I wish I could do that, because it's just not you. It's not your mood, right? It's just like, a man has an intimate relationship with his wife. The grown-up son doesn't think, let me have the same relationship with my mother, right? That's just disgusting. The thought doesn't cross his mind if he's, mentally healthy. It's like, no, that's not my relationship. I don't want that. I appreciate that my father has a closer relationship with my mother in that respect, but I don't want that closeness, So the same thing, we are who we are, and we have our relationships, and we're totally satisfied in our relationship. Nothing is missing. We're not envious or jealous or thinking that someone is better and I wish I was them, or I'm better and they're not as good as me. It's just those concepts don't exist in the spiritual world.
Thank you so very much, respected Mataji. Thank you so much.
And just a little advice: be careful who you talk to about these things, because a lot of devotees, they try to enter prematurely into these kind of topics. I was at Govardhan last year with a group of young devotees, and we had we had like a very intimate little retreat with Burijan Prabhu. And he was telling us that, nowadays, any bhaktin, they're already talking about, Manjari Bhava and all these things. He said that when he joined ISKCON, he didn't even know. He was a devotee for maybe like 18 years. And somebody came to him and said something about, you need to really like cultivate your Manjari Bhav. And then Burijan Prabhu said, what's a Manjari? Like, they just didn't know about these things, because the word Manjari practically doesn't appear in Prabhupada's books, and that's all they had. They didn't have all these other books. They didn't have Goswami literatures. They didn't have like, all internet and all these classes and things and people talking about. It's like, and Prabhupada didn't talk about it a lot. They were just so busy preaching, They're just like so busy preaching. So these are things that, we don't have to even read about. We just need to practice Krishna consciousness, and it will all be revealed from within when we are ready. And there's no point trying to force it prematurely, because if we're not ready and we try to enter into these topics and meditations prematurely, then we're going to end up being very messed up, like this person. We're going to end up like just totally getting it all wrong and having a perverse conception of Goloka life, and if we have a misunderstanding, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam, that one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities will go back to Godhead. But one who misunderstands the nature of his activities and his in Goloka or Vaikuntha or wherever, one who misunderstands, they can't go there. they're going to take birth again in the material world until they, practice bhakti enough so that they actually understand things properly. So, sometimes it's like, and if you learn something wrong, it's even harder to learn it properly after you've already, it's like when I was learning how to drive, I already had a driving license from the USA. Then I moved to the UK. So I was in London and I needed to get a British driving license. So the devotees temple enrolled me in a driving class. They said, you already know how to drive, but just, you have to take a test. So there's some different things about driving in England that are, you don't experience, like other side of the road and different roundabouts and different things. So just take a few lessons and then you'll pass the test, no problem. So I got into the car with the driving instructor in London, and he said, how much driving experience do you have? I said, oh, I already know how to drive. I have a driving license from the USA. And he said, oh, you're going to be very hard to teach then. He said, the ones who think they know how to drive, it's very hard for them to learn. He said the best students are the ones that don't know anything, and then I can just teach them the right way from the beginning. So, don't try to learn how to drive, your eternal relationship with Krishna prematurely. And then after, when you get to the stage where now it's time to actually learn about those things, you have to spend so much time unlearning what you learned improperly previously. So
Mataji,
when you're ready, it will be clear from within. Krishna will reveal certain things to you.
thank you so very much, Mataji. Mataji, can I understand like this, like Hanumanji in a Dasya Bhav? So in a Dasya Rasa he has, but he doesn't feel like any lack in his rasa because he's fully in that rasa and he's very
Yeah.
much satisfied and blissful in that. So we can we understand like this everything that whatever every soul sarupa is in, so there is no need to that higher lower. So everybody is fully blissful and satisfied.
Yeah.
Thank
It's like, and then, I mean, from another point of view, it's said that, the gopis are the best devotees of Krishna. And that, like the rasas, they kind of like, from Shanta rasa, that Dasya rasa is higher than Shanta, and then Sakya rasa is higher than Dasya, Vatsalya bhav is higher than Sakya, and Madhurya is the best. Okay. So that's still there because the higher rasas include all the same components of the lower rasas, but plus more, right? Plus more. So they're more, in one sense, there's complete, more complete, most complete, right? Perfect, more perfect, most perfect. So there's that conception in the spiritual world. But everything is complete and everything is perfect. And in whatever rasa you are, you're going to feel that your life, your spiritual life is complete and perfect. So someone used this analogy to explain it to me that I thought made it easy to understand. It's like you have different cups, you have a cup this big and a cup this big and a cup that big. So you have different size cups, but they're all full. So the big cup might say to the small cup, hey, I'm bigger than you. And the small cup says, that's fine because I'm full, like I don't need more water. I couldn't take more water. If you pour more water into me, I'm just going to spill out anyway. So don't worry about it. So like that, someone may be in a higher rasa, but even if you're in a so-called lower rasa, I mean, it's not really correct because everything is perfect, but just for the sake of saying, even if you're in a so-called lower rasa, you're still going to feel fully complete, in fact, overflowing with ananda, with happiness, with satisfaction. Okay? You won't be hankering. There's no hankering.
Yeah. Thank you so very much, Mataji. Please have my humble obeisance.
Okay, so it's half our time is up. Let's take a little 10-minute break now, and then we'll resume. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please come back. If more of you can turn on your videos, that would be helpful for me. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so left off on 22. You probably need to go a little faster. Let's have someone please read 23 to 27.
Nanda,
Oh, you got muted there, Ganga Shakti.
sorry, Mataji.
It's okay.
Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the creator of the whole universe, who carries in his hand the bow named Saranga. We have been specifically deputed to take you to the spiritual world. To achieve Vishnu Lok is very difficult, but by your austerity you have conquered. Even the greatest rishis and demigods cannot achieve this position. Simply to see the supreme abode, the Vishnu planet, the sun and moon and all the other planets, stars, lunar mansions and solar systems are circumambulating it. Now please come, you are welcome to go there. Dear King Dhruva, neither your forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet known as Vishnu Lok, where Lord Vishnu personally resides, is the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. O Immortal One, this unique airplane has been sent by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by selected prayers and who is the chief of all living entities. You are quite worthy to board such a plane.
Thank you. So the Vishnu Dutas here, they're very encouraging. They're reaffirming Dhruva's worthiness to board the airplane. They're reminding him of things that he did in his life, which enabled him to earn this qualification. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport to text 23 that we need to be trained. Well, in the previous verse, he was talking about how the human form of life is a chance to be trained to be agreeable to the orders of the Supreme Lord. He mentions about the Vishnu Dutas themselves that the word samato means confidential and also obedient, that the Vishnu Dutas were obedient to the will of the Lord. In fact, everyone in the spiritual world is obedient to the will of the Lord. So if we want to go to the spiritual world, we also have to become obedient to the will of the Lord, agreeable to follow his orders. And Prabhupada says that's the whole purpose of the human form of life, is to be trained to be agreeable to the orders of the Lord. And ISKCON is made for that purpose. So, and the training, Prabhupada says, should start from a young age, like Dhruva Maharaj, 5 years old, and Prahlad Maharaj, who says, Komaram acharet pragyo, dharmam bhagavatam ima. So this, Bhagavat Dharma, it needs to be studied from a very early age. And Prabhupada, he's really getting into mood and mission mode here in these purports that, ISKCON is here for that training, and we need to start educational institutes like gurukuls and, like what you have there, studying Shastra for children of all ages, youth, adults, old people. Everyone needs to be trained. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in text 23 and 22 purport, there's this one sentence that's the same exact sentence. Did anyone notice that? In 23 and 22 and 23 purports. It's the second to last sentence of text 22 purport. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for everyone. And it's also the first line of text 23 purport. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for everyone. So Prabhupada is really emphasizing that Dhruva Maharaj, he started off just an angry, confused, upset kid on the bodily concept of life. And he ended up in one lifetime going back home, back to Godhead, right? Through training, through association, through receiving instruction, through following instruction, through practicing, through correcting oneself based on, advice of seniors. So that's the same process that we're following. And he says that we can go back to Godhead also in one life. And he says that in a later purport. Some people say, oh, it takes 3 lifetimes or this or that. Or he says in one life. Dhruva went in one life. We can also go in one life if we just apply ourselves to the process as Dhruva Maharaj did. So, and then, yeah, so we see here the Vishnu Dutas, they're being very clear. They say, Netum Tvam Bhagavat Padam. I like that line. Bhagavat Padam means the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God. This is not Padam, it's Padam, the abode, the position, like the abodes. We've come here to take you to the abode of the Lord. We're taking you to the Lord, the same person that you saw when you were 5 years old. Do you remember? We're taking you to him, to his place. And then they say Atishta in text 25, and then again in text 26, they say Atishta, means come and sit down here. Please come. Prabhupada Chants, please come. So they really want him to go. They're really calling him. They're really like inviting him. So, yeah. And they say that they remind him also that, yeah, when you were a little boy, you wanted a kingdom greater than your grandfather's. Well, this planet is so great. This is your forefathers never achieved anything like this. This was beyond even their imagination. So just come. It's time to go. And we've personally brought this airplane for you. And don't worry. Don't feel that you're unqualified. They say you're worthy. Arhasi means you deserve it. You deserve this. And they use the word Ayushman in text 27. O immortal one, you are immortal and you are fit to leave this mortal world. So that's, yeah, our situation is that all of us are immortal. And so we're not meant to be in a mortal world, where people die. This thing of death is so foreign to us. It's very unnatural for us. And that's why we don't like it. This is not supposed to happen. When someone dies, we always feel like shouldn't be happening. This is not supposed to happen. Why is this happening? Right? Because the soul, it's so foreign for the soul. It's just so weird. Like, what is going on here? Why are people dying? People don't die, because that's like, we're spiritual. We're meant to be in the world where everyone's immortal. These things shouldn't be happening. So yeah, we're in the wrong place. We need to go back to the immortal world where everyone's immortal. Okay, so now Dhruva Maharaj is boarding the airplane. Yeah, that will be described here. Someone please read text 28 and 29.
The great sage Maitreya continued, Maharaj Dhruva was very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he heard the sweet speeches of the Lord's chief associates in the Vaikuntha planet, he immediately took his sacred bath, dressed himself with suitable ornaments, and performed his daily spiritual duties. Thereafter, he offered his respectful obeisances to the great sages present there and accepted their blessings. Before getting aboard, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the airplane, circumambulated it, and also offered obeisances to the associates of Vishnu. In the meantime, he became as brilliant and illuminating as molten gold. He was thus completely prepared to board the transcendental plane.
Thank you. Yeah, so we see that Dhruva Maharaj, he did everything very conscientiously to prepare himself to meet the Lord, because he's saying, I'm going to meet the Lord. I need to, be mentally prepared, be clean, be, everything has to be paka, So he goes and he takes a bath, he dresses himself up nicely, he puts on ornaments, he's getting all like dressed up for the occasion. And this actually he did all of his duties, his like rituals and things. And he even went to the sages that were around, because he was at Badrik Ashram. There's many sages there. And he went there and he asked them for their blessings. And I think Prabhupada points out here that he wasn't gloating. He wasn't like, hey, sages, check this out. The airplane from Vaikuntha came for me. Woohoo! look at me, how great I am. But rather he was going and very humbly approaching them. He wasn't, thinking that he was better and more qualified than them, but he was seeing them as senior. I mean, this is why he's going back to Godhead, is because he's always seeing others more qualified than himself, even though there seem to be some objective circumstances to indicate otherwise. But he still goes on seeing others as senior, and he goes to these sages and he offers his obeisances and he asks for their blessings to board the airplane. So this is very sweet, and it's another symptom of another characteristic of real spiritual consciousness, real Vaikuntha consciousness. And this thing of him being very conscientious about going, it reminded me of, have any of you ever read the book Salted Bread, about these two Russian devotees that get put into a prison camp and things? So I think the older one, Sachi Sutta Prabhu, his health gets really bad. They're in a camp in Siberia and his health is really bad. And at the end, he realizes that he's going to leave his body there in prison. So it's very sweet. In a way, it's horrible, but in a way it's like sweet. But you can see how he was doing just like Dhruva Maharaj. He understood he was going to leave his body. And like the day before, he took his sheets, because they have the white sheet on the bed. He like washed the sheet and hung it to dry, so it was very clean. And then next day, they didn't have like showers or something. They just had water. So he got some water and put it on a clean cloth, and he wiped his body all down with water. And then he didn't have tilak, but he had toothpaste. So he took toothpaste and he made tilak, marked tilak in 12 parts of his body. He put on that clean bed sheet as a dhoti, and then he just sat down. He said prayers and meditation, and he had a picture of, he had some pictures of like Gaurnitai, Radha Krishna, that he had hidden. He was keeping them sewn, hidden it within the sewn lining of his jacket. So he took those out and he put them in front of him. And then he just sat there and chanted Hare Krishna on the beads that he had made out of bread. Like he took bread mixed with water a long time ago and left them to dry and then made beads. He was chanting on those beads. And then he just left his body like that. But it was very conscientious. It was just like, okay, now I'm going back to Krishna. I need to clean my body. I need to prepare myself. I need to, he just did it. So it reminded me that Dhruva Maharaj was like, okay, I'm going back. I need to bathe. I need to dress in clean clothes. I need to get myself like prepared. So this was a nice connection that I made. Yeah. So, all right. So then we did 29. Yeah. So then Dhruva Maharaj he circumambulates the airplane. And Prabhupada says that because anything that comes from Lord Vishnu is as good as Lord Vishnu. Everything of Vishnu's is as good as Vishnu. So Dhruva Maharaj understood that. And so he thought this Vimana that came from Vaikuntha Loka is also as good as Vishnu. It's also as worshipable. So he was worshiping the Vimana by circumambulating it. And also, of course, worshiping the Vishnu Dutas themselves, because they are also as good as Vishnu. We were talking about how, about seeing everyone equally, but devotees are, even although we see everyone equally spiritually, but still devotees are in an exceptional category. Still devotees are special. And Krishna himself says that. He says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu, name dveshyo stina priyaha, but ye bhajante tu mam bhaktya, mayite teshu chapyaham. He says, I'm equal to everyone. I don't hate anyone. No one's especially dear to me, but those who worship me with devotion, they are my personal confidential friends. They are in me and I am also in them. They are also friends to me. So so he especially worshiped these Vishnu Dutas and the airplane. So it's good for us to remember this too, that when we're dealing with temple property, right? Because the temple property belongs to Krishna, right? Krishna is the Lord of the temple. Everything there is his. Anything that is basically ISKCON property is Krishna's property. So, and Prabhupada says that our temples are as good as Vaikuntha. So we should take good care of anything that's temple property, even though like there's a saying that ownership turns sand into gold. So when something is our thing, our personal car, our personal home, we'll take care of it. But if it's like the temple car, it tends to get smashed, and trashed, and nobody cares because it's not mine. Somebody else will take care of it. But we should see, this is actually like non-different from Krishna. This is Krishna's property. It's non-different from Krishna. It's as good as Krishna. And I should take care of this even better than my own so-called personal property. Actually, everything's Krishna's, but especially the temple things. So, yeah. Whenever I read this pastime, it always surprises me how Dhruva Maharaj actually took all this time, because it must have taken hours for him to go bathe, dress, ornament, and approach each one of the sages, ask for their blessings. I would have been like, I don't want to make the Vishnu Dutas wait for me. So they've come here. I don't want to leave them just standing around twiddling their fingers. We should go quickly. But I would also be thinking, let's get going before they change their mind or before they get impatient and go pick up another passenger and leave me here taking my bath and putting on my makeup, So, but Dhruva, he didn't have any anxiety about anything like that. He had no anxiety about them leaving. And the Vishnu Dutas also, they seem to have all the time in the world. They don't express any impatience. So, yeah, so Dhruva didn't have anxiety. The Vishnu Dutas didn't have anxiety because in Vaikuntha, there's no anxiety. That's literally what it means. So Vaikuntha consciousness means no anxiety, that everything is going to be okay because the Lord has sent this plane for me. This plane is for me. It's waiting for me. And because I'm going to the Lord, I need to do what I need to do. So there's no anxiety. And all of them are demonstrating principles favorable for pure devotional service. So, like Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction, enthusiasm, confidence, and patience, right? Utsahan nishchaya daryat. That enthusiasm, Prabhupada says, means endeavoring with intelligence. So they want to do it right. Dhruva Maharaj, he doesn't want to just jump on, okay, let's go, he wants to do it right. And then confidence means that the Lord's order will be fulfilled. Like I said, this Lord if he wants me to go back to Vaikuntha, they'll wait, they'll wait for it to be done properly. And also patience, he's kind of savoring the moment. I imagine that he's like savoring the moment. He's like really caught up in the moment. He's just like, this is wonderful. I really want to make this a deep experience. And also because he's already liberated, he's already practically entered into the realm of eternality, right? It's in the material world that we're so like on the clock, we're so worried about time. The time is slipping through our fingers. Soon I'll be getting old and, we don't have time for this, don't have time for that. But when we're on the liberated platform, then it's like we're already in the realm of eternality. We realize that Sat feature, Sat Chit Ananda, I'm eternal. Of course, we want to become Krishna conscious in this lifetime, but when we attain that stage, then it's like everything is okay, this eternity, knowledge and bliss. So, yeah. And text 29. Did we read 29? We didn't read 29, right? Did we? Sorry, we did.
Yes.
Okay, so text 29, yeah. In the meantime, so this is a significant thing that happens here also, is that Dhruva's body became as illuminating as molten gold. It says, Bibrad Rupam Hiranmayam. This means that his body became spiritualized. Like I was saying, he went back in his same body, but it wasn't exactly the same body because it transformed, but he still looked the same. He still had similar features, but different. So it's just like if you've read about the life of Narottam Das Thakur, the same thing happened to him, that when he was a young man, he went to bathe in the Padma River, and Lord Chaitanya had deposited his love, his ecstasy for in love of Krishna into that river and told goddess Padma Devi of the river that please hold on to this, and a personality will come named Narottam and give it to him when he bathes in your waters. So when Narottam Das Thakur went to the Padma, he had a dark brown standard, complexion. But then when he came out like golden, and also infused with ecstatic love. And so when he went home, his mother barely recognized him because he was like, his complexion had changed. He was like effulgent, and because his body had become spiritualized, and that's the nature. Spiritual body is bright and effulgent, and that happens even to us. You can see when someone comes to Krishna consciousness, they often have like a kind of like dull, like a cloud over their features. It's kind of like their overcast complexion. It's just sort of like dull and gray, but then after practicing Krishna consciousness, it's like, woo, they brighten up, and you can see that. That's why you can, no matter, even if devotees are dressed in ordinary clothes, you can still know who's a devotee. Even if you don't see the neck beads, it's a devotee by they have that look. The effulgence. So that's the actual, it's a thing, it's a gradual spiritualization of the material body as this spiritual spark starts to wake up and glow more brightly from within. All right, so now Dhruva is going to finally get onto the plane. Let's read 30 and 31.
When Dhruva Maharaj was attempting to get on the transcendental plane, he saw death personified approaching him. Not caring for death, however, he took advantage of the opportunity to put his feet on the head of death, and thus he got up on the airplane, which was as big as the house. At that time, drums and cattle drums resounded from the sky. The chief Gandharvas began to sing, and other demigods showered flowers like torrents of rain upon Dhruva Maharaj.
Jai, thank you. All right, so Dhruva's he's walking towards the plane, and he sees death personified approaching. Literally says that, Dadarsha antakam agatam. Darsha, he got the darshan of antakam. Antakam literally means the end. Death, because for materialistic people, death is the end of their material life. And agatam was coming. He could see death was coming. But death personified, knew that he can't touch a devotee. He has no influence over a devotee. And so, seeing the devotional qualifications of Dhruva Maharaj, death personified simply bowed his head at his feet, and Dhruva Maharaj very confidently used the head of death like a stepping stone to put his foot on and step up and get onto the plane. So someone might think, well, if someone comes to bow down to you, how can you step on their head? Isn't that like really rude? Imagine, like a junior devotee comes and pays obeisances, Vanchikalpa, and you just step on their head. That would be like the worst thing you could do in that situation, right? But the point here is that, of course, the Lord orchestrated this whole scene, and the Lord wanted to make an impactful statement that when death comes to a devotee, he's not coming to get you, like in a bad way. He's not coming to kill you. He's coming to help you. He's coming to assist you in going back to Krishna. So death was like, here, let me help you get on the airplane. So as devotees, we shouldn't be afraid of death. There's nothing to be afraid of, because after all, we want to go back to Godhead. And the only way that we can go is that we need to basically go through this so-called dying process. We need to go through death. So when death comes, it's coming to help us to achieve this cherished objective of going back to Godhead, because we need to go through death. Death, it's like a gate. It's like if you want to go into the beautiful garden, you need to pass through the gate. So if we want to go back to Godhead, we need to pass through the gate of death. And so when death comes, that means the gate is opening for us and we can go. And Srila Prabhupada, he talks about how death for a devotee is totally different from death for a non-devotee. And non-devotees are always afraid of death because they're totally absorbed in their material lives, and death is literally antikam. It's literally the end of everything that they lived for, everything they were attached to, everything that they want to keep, all their hopes, all their dreams. They see everything is just smashed, everything is lost. So, but for devotees, it's not like that, because we're already like, we're not interested in this world. There's nothing here for us. We're just so done with it, and what we're looking forward to being with Krishna and going to a spiritual world and having a spiritual body that we can serve Krishna with so nicely without getting tired or hungry or getting sick or, having to stop our service for any reason at all. And we can just be ever increasingly serving Krishna with renewed energy and enthusiasm at every moment. So it's very wonderful, it's like a very bright future. And so when death comes, we're like, woohoo, now's my chance, going back home, back to Godhead. So yeah, Prabhupada compares it to the way that a cat deals with a kitten or with a rat. So when the mother cat is approaching a rat, then the rat's terrified because he sees, oh no, now I'm going to get torn apart. Now I'm just going to get killed. I'm done for. Whereas when the mother cat approaches her kitten, when the mother cat like sinks her, she gets her the rat in the grip of her jaws, latches on, then the rat's like, oh no, he's feeling a lot of pain, a lot of fear, his heart's beating a mile a minute. Whereas the mother cat, when she gets the kitten in her jaws, then the kitten's feeling comfort, like, oh, my mother, she cares about me. She's going to move me to a safe place. She's going to move me back to the box, where this is my little comfortable bed, and she's going to cuddle with me there, and I'm going to drink milk there from her, and everything's going to be wonderful. So it's like totally different scenario, just exactly like the way a non-devotee is fearful in the jaws of death. There's so much pain and suffering and fear, whereas devotees in the so-called jaws of death are just actually seeing it as the loving, comforting, firm grip of the Lord taking us back to him. Rukmini.
Mataji, does it like that only when soul attains Krishna Prem, then only the soul can go to back home, back to Godhead? Like somebody is in the process, and if that devotee remembers Krishna at the end of the time, so he would suppose that devotee is attached to the process, like he's attached to the Bhagavatam or chanting or anything, but the Sarup Siddhi is not there still. So what will be the destination of that devotee? Will he get birth again to practice, to complete the process?
Well, if the person is totally like absorbed in Krishna consciousness, even though they haven't come to, realize their Swarup yet, but they have that, ananyas chintayanto mam, their concentration is not on any other object. And yejana paryupasate, that they're always engaged in properly worshiping the Lord. Tesham nibya viyuktanam, always fixed in devotion. Then yogakshemam vahamyaham, Krishna will preserve what we have, whatever spiritual advancement we will be made, we'll get all the potency of that impelling us on our way back to Godhead. And whatever we're lacking in terms of, if we haven't, if we're still at, asakti, nishta or asakti, we haven't quite got to bhava, prema, Krishna will carry that. He says that provided that we worship him with exclusive devotion, meditating on his transcendental form, he says, to them, I carry what they have and I preserve what they lack. Sorry, I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. So we don't need to worry, even if something's missing, Krishna can take us there if he so desires. Or he may make some other arrangement, Sometimes it's said that we take birth in a place where Krishna is having his pastimes. So that's also back to Godhead, if Krishna is there with all of his eternal associates, it's non-different from the spiritual world. But so we might take birth, as a daughter of, or son or daughter of cowherd men and women in the village of Braj, in a place where Krishna also took his birth around the same time, and we grow up with Krishna, playing with Krishna, dancing with Krishna, eating with Krishna, and that way we see, and there are other devotees there who are Nitya Siddhas, who are on the level of Prem, and we learn Prem from them. We catch it, because Bhakti it has to be caught from someone who has it. So we'll be surrounded with Prema Bhaktis, and so it's just like automatic that we're going to get Prema, and we're already with Krishna. So it's like, how can you not have Prema when you're like with Krishna, seeing his beauty, seeing his wonderful qualities, interacting with him? So then we'll definitely go back to Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world. So either directly or, both of them are directly. So it's either direct one way, the direct one-step process, or the direct two-step process. But either way, you're going directly back to Godhead. So no need to worry. What we need to worry about is becoming Ananya Chintayantos Mam, becoming like with no other thing in our consciousness and worshiping the Lord with devotion. That's our part. And we work on that, and Krishna will take care of the rest. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, so for a devotee, death it's not scary. It's just, even if a devotee is not so advanced that they think they're going back to Godhead, but the next life is going to be better, because we've done something. So we're definitely going to get a human birth. We're most likely going to take birth in a devotee family. We're going to, have a life of service, taking prasadam, ecstatic kirtans, preaching. It's going to be another ecstatic adventure in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, one way or the other, in this world or the next world. So, death is just like a springboard into into the next transcendental adventure in Krishna's service. So yeah, the demigods understand this, and they're seeing this glorious transition, and so all of them are cheering. They're showering flowers, they're cheering, well done, Dhruva Maharaj. So yeah, devotees' departure is a cause for celebration. It's not a cause for lamentation. When I was living in Mayapur, there was this one Prabhupada disciple. He was leaving his body. Devotees were going every day doing kirtan and all that. Finally, he left his body, and his wife and his daughter and granddaughter, they were in the room, and they all just started dancing. They were just dancing right after he left his body, and they just started dancing ecstatically with the kirtan. And some people thought it was weird, but those who were the devotees who were more transcendental, they could appreciate that they had a real spiritual understanding of the event, that he was going back to Godhead. He was really going to a better place. So yeah. All right, so Dhruva Maharaj was ready to go. Now he's on the airplane, but then he has a second thought. Let's read text 32 to 35.
Dhruva was seated in the transcendental airplane, which was just about to start, when he remembered his poor mother, Suniti. He thought to himself, how shall I go alone to the Vaikuntha planet and leave behind my poor mother? The great associates of Vaikuntha Lok, Nanda and Sunanda, could understand the mind of Dhruva Maharaj, and thus they showed him that his mother Suniti was going forward in another plane. While Dhruva Maharaj was passing through space, he gradually saw all the planets of the solar system, and on the path he saw all the demigods in their airplanes showering flowers upon him like rain. Dhruva Maharaj thus surpassed the 7 planetary systems of the great sages who are known as Saptarishi. Beyond that region, he achieved the transcendental situation of permanent life in the planet where Lord Vishnu lives.
Thank you. So we see here that Dhruva Maharaj, another quality of a great devotee is that they are grateful to all of those who helped them. And his mother helped him so much. If it wasn't for Suniti, he literally would not have met Narada Muni. He wouldn't have started Bhakti. He wouldn't be sitting in the transcendental airplane right now. So Suniti was Dhruva Maharaj's Pata Pradarshika Guru, or sometimes we say Vartma Pradarshika Guru, which is a Shiksha Guru who shows one the path bhakti. And in this purport here to text 32, this is actually the one statement in all of Srila Prabhupada's books that devotees who are opposed to, Vaishnavis being Diksha Gurus, they really like to cling to this statement, despite hundreds of other statements that Prabhupada says, where Prabhupada says that women can be gurus. They really like to quote this one, where it says that Suniti says, according to Shastric injunctions, there's no difference between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru, and generally the Shiksha Guru later on becomes the Diksha Guru. Suniti, however, being a woman, and specifically his mother, could not become Dhruva Maharaj's Diksha Guru. So, so there are a couple of things to understand here. And what Prabhupada is saying here is that the main reason that she couldn't be his Diksha Guru is because she was his mother. Right? He says because she was a woman and specifically his mother. So that's just a general thing, that if someone is the mother or the father or the brother or the sister, of the candidate for initiation, they can't be the Diksha Guru, because it's just, you can't be objective. There's too much of an emotional attachment due to the close family relationship. And we see like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he refused to initiate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, although he was definitely his primary Shiksha Guru, but because he was his father. And then another thing to consider here is that the time. So this was way back in the beginning, Satya Yuga. And so it seems that at that time, women generally weren't Diksha Gurus. Like the role of women in society was quite different. And there's evidence of that in how we see what was it like for Suniti. She was living in the palace, and the king he wasn't very favored by her. So she was just kind of isolated in her room and kind of helpless, and dependent. So that seems to be the situation of women at that time. And the world was very different back then. Even Srila Prabhupada said about his own mother that when she would leave the house, she would go in a palanquin with curtains on both sides so that no one would see her. So that was just the situation with women in those times. They just weren't high profile, preachers. So, and also they didn't have a lot of opportunity to learn the scriptures, right? Like gurukuls were mainly for Brahmin boys, and, some girls may have studied Shastra, but it was definitely going to be more rare. So now we live in a different time, women study Bhakti Shastri. There are many women here in the Bhakti Vaibhava class. In my Bhakti Vedanta class, it was like half women. So women are studying Shastra. Women are traveling all over the world, preaching Krishna consciousness just as well as the men are. Basically, if you go through all the list of qualifications for being a Diksha Guru in the scriptures, and even in ISKCON, which is based on the scriptures, obviously, you'll find that women basically tick all the boxes. They meet all of the criteria for, one who needs to be a Diksha Guru. So, especially nowadays, it's like, it's not something that's socially unacceptable or politically incorrect for women to be gurus in most parts of the world. In fact, it's the opposite. Many intelligent people are actually discouraged from joining ISKCON because they don't want to be part of an institution that doesn't allow equal opportunities for women. They see that as really narrow-minded and really just backward. That's just so Stone Age, and they also think it's hypocritical because the first point of our philosophy is that we're not the body. But then how is it that when it comes to gurus, then all of a sudden we are the body, and the body is the most important thing, that even if you have all the qualifications, you still can't do it because of your body. It just doesn't make sense. So it's actually going against it's counterproductive to our preaching and spreading Krishna consciousness. I don't know what it's like in India, but especially in the West, it's a big thing, there was actually, I was in Houston and I was doing an outreach program, and this woman came, and I was giving the class. So after the class, she came up and to me and she said, I'm so happy that you were giving the class. And I was like, what? You don't even know me. She said, no, I'm just happy that a woman was giving the class. She said that she came from a Christian background and she actually got trained to be like a Christian minister. But when it was time for her to want to be a Christian minister, actually like, work, like, act as she was trained, it was mainly like men who were ministers, men who were the leaders in the church. And they all told her, no, like, okay, you have the training, but, better you just teach the children in Sunday school, or maybe you can have like run a youth group or something in the community. But, like being a minister, that's not really for women. And so she got so disgusted that she left Christianity. Like she had dedicated her whole life, basically, like, that was what she wanted to do for her life, was to be a Christian minister. And because of that, she rejected her whole religion that she dedicated herself to. This is a woman who's like middle-aged, she's like in her late 40s or something. And then so she started looking around for other religions that didn't oppress women. So when she came to our, Krishna conscious little program and she saw me giving the class, she had some hope, that, okay, maybe here's a religion that I can belong to and feel valued and feel like I'm not, discriminated against. And I was just thinking, she was telling me these things and I was thinking, oh no, wait till she finds out, that ISKCON's not all like this. But yeah, so it's really we really need to actually put into practice our philosophy and understand how to apply the principles, the actual principles of Krishna consciousness in the way that Srila Prabhupada intended and the way that Shastra tells us to apply them, which is what we saw in the previous chapter, Desha Kala Vibhagavit, according to time, place, and circumstances. And we can't just take one statement from one purport that's talking about a specific woman from Kali Yuga, from a totally different time, who couldn't be a Diksha Guru for her own son because she was his mother, and thinking that applies to all women at all places at all times. It's just very irrational. And if we are going to do that, then we have to take other statements from Srimad Bhagavatam that describe things like how sannyasis should live, or how vanaprasthas. So, if we're going to follow that, then, in the 11th canto, it says that sannyasis should either go naked or wear only a loincloth. It says that vanaprasthas should wear tree bark and not cut their fingernails, have matted hair. It says that brahmacharis should not eat unless personally called by their gurus. So are we following any of those shastric principles? No, because obviously, whenever these things come up and whenever anybody asks about them, the response is always that's from a former time. We don't follow those things now because it's different time, place, and circumstances, but rather we follow the principle and we apply the principle according to Desha Kala Patra. So, that's great. But then whenever something comes up about women, it's like, no, Shastra says you need to accept it. So we need to be a little consistent in our application of Shastra. And also understand that there's a difference between what is Siddhanta and what is not Siddhanta. Because I don't know if any of you have done the hermeneutics course. There's this course that was created by the Shastric Advisory Committee of the GBC. It's called ISKCON Hermeneutics. And there they cover this principle very comprehensively about how to understand and apply Shastra. Because not every word in Shastra is Siddhanta, right? There are 10 principles of Vaishnava Siddhanta, the Dasa Mula Tattva, basically. And all of them are eternal, universal, transcontextual truths, which means, for example, that every living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna, right? That's the eternal truth. It's universal, it's transcontextual, all places, all times, all circumstances, all candidates, that applies, right? But not everything in Shastra is like that. Some statements are supporting Siddhanta, some are examples of how to apply Siddhanta in a certain context, and some are actually opposed to Siddhanta. So actually, most of what's in scripture, like Srimad Bhagavatam, is contextual. It's highly contextual. So it applies in that context but it doesn't apply. It's applied differently. The principle is applied differently in different contexts. So that's why we need to hear from the current acharya. That's why the system of disciplic succession is so important, is because the current acharya has the role, very important function of teaching how to apply the principles of Shastra, the eternal universal principles of Shastra, in a way that's appropriate to the current context, the current time, place, and circumstances. So then in applying the principle about, whether women can be Diksha Gurus or not, we need to see what our Acharya said about it when he was specifically asked the question about women now in ISKCON, his disciples, can they be Diksha Gurus? So I want to show you here what Prabhupada said. Just going to share my screen. There's a couple of quotes here. All right, so this is, can you see that? Okay.
Yes,
so this is, oh, you're good. So this is an interview with a professor and a few others. This is here in Canada, in Toronto, took place in Toronto, Canada. So someone asked a question here. Swamiji, would you say something about the place of women in your movement? Prabhupada says, there is no distinction between man and woman. That is clearly said in the Bhagavad Gita. Mam hi partha vipashritya, ye pisyu papayonaya, striyo shudras vaishya. The first is mentioned, striya shudras vaishya. These classes are understood to be less intelligent, woman, shudra, and the vaishyas. But Krishna says, no, even for them it is open. Because in the spiritual platform, there is no such distinction, man, woman, or black, or white, or big, or small. No, everyone is a spirit soul. Pandita Samadarshina, Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmane Gavihastini, Shuni Chaiva Supakecha, Pandita. One who is actually learned. He is Samadarshina. He does not make any distinction. But so far our body is concerned, there must be some distinction for keeping the society in order. Then she says, the women can be pandits then? Oh yes, Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. Not only become pandit, she can also attain perfection. There is no such restriction. Krishna said. She asks again, do you have any pandits in the Western movement? Prabhupada, there are so many Western women, girls in our society, they are chanting, dancing, taking to Krishna consciousness. Of course, because superficially, bodily, there's some distinction. So we keep women separate from men. That's all. Otherwise, the rites are the same. So there is some consideration for the body, and I'm saying, I'm not reading now, in that, we need to protect women by keeping them separate from men, and, some situations where they may need protection. But as far as Krishna consciousness, as far as being a pandit, as far as going back to Godhead, for being a guru, then, that the body is not a limitation in that regard. And then the professor, now he's going to, I highlighted this because this is where he really pointedly asks the question, is it possible, Swamiji, for a woman to be a guru in the line of disciplic succession? So he's talking about having actual disciples. And Prabhupada, yes, Janava Devi was Nityananda's wife. She became. If she's able to go to the highest perfection of life, why is it not possible to become guru? So he's making that point that if, back here with, when he's saying, where is it? That they can, he doesn't quote that part of the verse. Anyways, Krishna's saying in that 932 that women, Vaishya Shudras, they can all attain the supreme destination. So Prabhupada's making this point that if they can attain the supreme destination, if they can go back to Godhead, then why can't they become a guru? It's that's the lesser qualification. It says man or woman, but man or woman, unless one has attained the perfection, ye Krishna tattva veti se guru hai. The qualification of guru is that he must be fully cognizant of the science of Krishna. Then he or she can become guru. Ye Krishna tattva veti se guru hai. In our material world, is it any prohibition that a woman cannot become a professor? If she's qualified, she can become a professor. What is the wrong there? She must be qualified. That is the position. So similarly, if the woman understands Krishna consciousness perfectly, she can become guru. So this is very clear, just needs to meet the qualifications. But Prabhupada says, but not so many. So, there may not be so many because most women don't have that nature, to like really go deep into Shastra, to think about things that way, to be able, maybe they won't be able to answer like every question the disciples have, but there can be a few, and Prabhupada's not against it. And then specifically here, Prabhupada talks about initiating disciples. This is a letter to Hamsadutta, 1969. This was very early on. And this is where he's talking about the exams and, criteria for Shastra courses like Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, etc. So this instruction is not, although this is a letter, it's not like specifically for Hamsadutta Prabhu, but it's for the movement, because he's talking about examinations within the movement for all members of ISKCON. So he says, next January, there will be an examination on this Bhagavad Gita. Papers will be sent by me to all centers, and those securing the minimum passing grade will be given the title Bhakti Shastri. Similarly, another examination will be held on Lord Chaitanya's appearance day in February 1970. It will be upon Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Those passing will get the title of Bhakti Vaibhava. Another examination will be held sometime in 1971 on the 4 books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and Nectar Devotion. One who passes this will be awarded the title of Bhakti Vedanta. Then he says, I want that all of my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhakti Vedanta, so that the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. So sweet, Prabhupada, the family transcendental, because he's Bhakti Vedanta Swami. So he wants that we inherit this family name. Those possessing the title of Bhakti Vedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. Maybe by 1975, all my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the number of the generations. That is my program. So yeah, he wants all of his spiritual sons and daughters to get this title of Bhakti Vedanta, and whoever has the title of Bhakti Vedanta, they can initiate disciples. And he says, that is my program. So yeah, the question is, if we are not following Srila Prabhupada's program, then whose program are we following? So I think it's very clear here. I won't belabor the point. Okay. Text 33. Yeah. So Dhruva Maharaj he's thinking about his mother. And Jagat Mata Sachi Mataji, would you like to say something?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, when we allow some female Diksha Guru or Matajis to be a Diksha Guru, there are other challenges will also come. Like they need a female associates with her and so many other things, because we have how we have to plan for that also if we are going to do that. So many other things.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. Just like sannyasis travel with a servant, she can travel with a friend or a girl or someone who assists her and is present, so she's not in a situation where she's alone with a man or something, But then also, it's not that every guru has to travel. There are many gurus in ISKCON that don't travel. Sannyasis have to travel, but women aren't going to be sannyasis. So, there are many gurus that they have their place, where they live there. And there are gurus who are grihastas, they have their homes, they have their families, and the disciples come to them. Sometimes they travel. So, it's not that every guru has to be a Parivrajkacharya and circumambulate the globe 14 times and, like Prabhupada did. And Prabhupada had to do that because there was no one else to do it. Nowadays, we have gurus in every country, and a lot of them travel too. So it's not that every guru has to travel. It's not every guru does travel. And even if a woman wants to travel, she can just take a female associate with her so that she has company. And she may also be married. She can travel with her husband, So yeah, some considerations need to be there for a woman's protection in all circumstances, but it doesn't mean she can't have disciples just because she can't travel. That's kind of like ridiculous. But yeah, but it's an important consideration that women still need to be protected. Just, yeah, thank you. Okay. So then when Dhruva Maharaj asks this question, that how can I go back to Godhead without my mother, to whom I owe my spiritual life, then the Vishnu Dutas say, look up ahead. And then there's another spiritual airplane, and she's in it, waving. I'm here. So she's already on her way. And so Dhruva's very happy. And this shows yet another situation in which Krishna fulfills all the desires of Dhruva Maharaj. Krishna likes to fulfill all the desires of his devotees. This has been like a consistent theme in Dhruva Maharaj's life, that everything he ever wanted, he got. Even if he only slightly wanted it, even if he didn't even want it anymore, but he had wanted it previously, the Lord fulfills all the devotees' desires. Nothing is ever lacking. So even though Suniti wasn't so advanced in Krishna consciousness, because she didn't have the association of Narada Muni, she didn't have the opportunities that Dhruva Maharaj had to cultivate her bhakti, although she definitely was a devotee, still she went back to Godhead on the strength of his devotion. So this really sweet section of Prabhupada's purport here of text 33 that I'm going to read. The conclusion is that a disciple or an offspring who is a very strong devotee can carry with him to Vaikuntha Loka either his father, mother, or Shiksha or Diksha Guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, if I could perfectly deliver even one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission, propagating Krishna consciousness, to be successful. Interesting, Prabhupada says the same thing at the end of his preface to Bhagavad Gita, same exact thing. Continue to read here. The Krishna consciousness movement is spreading now all over the world. And sometimes I think, so this is Prabhupada saying, sometimes I think that even though I am crippled in many ways, if one of my disciples becomes as strong as Dhruva Maharaj, then he will be able to carry me with him to Vaikuntha Loka. Can you believe that? I mean, the first time I read that, tears came to my eyes. I was like, Prabhupada is so humble. It's almost too much. It's like, seriously, Srila Prabhupada? Seriously? You're thinking that you might not go back to Godhead, but maybe if your disciple goes, he'll be able to take you. So it just shows how amazing, Srila Prabhupada was, that here he was traveling all over the world, opening temples, making devotees who are just coming from such low backgrounds. And yet he's hoping, he's considering himself spiritually crippled in many ways, and hoping that one of his disciples will be able to take him back to Godhead like Dhruva Maharaj did Suniti. So this is just another example of Srila Prabhupada's inconceivable humility. This is Vaishnava humility. We see this in all of our acharyas, this level of humility. So it's very something that we need to consider, as we can also gauge our advancement, how humble are we? And to what extent do we feel that we're qualified? Of course, Krishna can do anything. And that way we go on feeling empowered as Krishna's instruments. But at the same time, personally speaking, it's like, who am I to do anything? Okay. And this is also, Prabhupada mentions in the purport to the next verse, that this is also a good message to all the mothers out there, or future mothers, that train your children well in Krishna consciousness, and they can take you back to Godhead. So it's a good impetus, to really put the effort in, put in the time and the energy to really train our children in Krishna consciousness, give them the best opportunity to make this life perfect, because if they can go back to Godhead, then we can too. Even if we slack off ourselves personally, just really invest in your children. So that's really nice. Okay, so let's go ahead. We will let's read up to including text 39.
The self-effulgent Vaikuntha planets, by whose illumination alone all the illuminating planets within the material world give off reflected light, cannot be reached by those who are not merciful to other living entities. Only persons who constantly engage in welfare activities for other living entities can reach the Vaikuntha planets. Persons who are peaceful, equipoised, cleansed, and purified, and who know the art of pleasing all other living entities, keep friendship only with devotees of the Lord. They alone can very easily achieve the perfection of going back home, back to Godhead. In this way, the fully Krishna-conscious Dhruva Maharaj, the exalted son of Maharaj Uttanpad, attained the summit of the three statuses of planetary systems. Saint Maitreya continued, my dear Vidur, descendant of Kuru, as the herd of bulls circumambulates a central pole on their right side, all the luminaries within the universal sky unceasingly circumambulate the abode of Dhruva Maharaj with great force and speed.
Thank you. So something very interesting here is that in the first couple of verses in this section, it's being said who can go back to Godhead and who can't go back to Godhead. So this is very instructive because we want to go back to Godhead. So we want to make sure that we don't do the wrong things and that we do the right things so that we can go back to Godhead. So in text 36, first he says, who can't go, who cannot go. Jantushu ye ananugraha, those who are not merciful to others. So in other words, we need to be very merciful to others. If we're not merciful to others, forget it, taking birth again in the material world. And then he says that on the other hand, he kind of reiterates that point in the opposite way, that those who can go back to Godhead, qualification is bhadrani charanti ye anisham, those who constantly engage in welfare acts for the benefit of others. Srila Prabhupada highlights this in the purport. He says that welfare means sharing Krishna consciousness, planning how to take others back to Godhead. And then he mentions that it doesn't matter if our attempts are successful or not. We just have to try. So the qualification to go back to Godhead is to try to give Krishna consciousness to others. Whether they actually become devotees, that's not up to us. That's up to their own choices and Krishna's plan, whatever for them. But we just need to try. We just need to try to spread Krishna consciousness. And this ultimate welfare for all living beings is to give them this knowledge. So if we don't do it, if we don't give mercy, we're not going back to Godhead. If we do, then that's our qualification. Even if we fail to make them devotees, doesn't matter. So then in text 37, in addition, there's a few more things that enable us to go back to Godhead. And he specifically says here that, he says, hold on, what's my place? He says, that they alone can easily go back home, back to Godhead. People who are peaceful, Shanta. So how do we become peaceful? When there are no demands for sense gratification. Prabhupada defines these in the purport. So only devotees can be peaceful because they just depend on Krishna. They don't worry about their sense gratification. Whatever the senses need for their sustenance, Krishna will provide. So they're peaceful about the bodily requirements of the senses. Then equipoise, sama drishaha, not discriminating on the basis of the body. Prabhupada, that's how Prabhupada literally defines samadrisha, is not discriminating on the basis of the body. So we're just talking about that. And not discriminate against someone because they're of a particular gender or a particular nationality or something. That's just bodily considerations. And if we do discriminate, then it says here, we're not going back to Godhead. So these are important things. Shuddha, to be clean and pure. And Prabhupada says that anyone who remembers Krishna becomes clean inside and out. And that's the verse that we always chant, apavitra pavitrava. And then it ends, yasmaret pundarikaksham sabhahya bhyantara shuchihi. That one who remembers smaret pundarikaksham, the lotus-eyed Lord, then they become internally and externally bahya and bhyantara suchihi, clean. Then another qualification is knows how to please all living entities. Sarva bhuta anuranjasaha. That we have to know the art of dealing pleasingly with all kinds of people. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that inviting people to kirtan and giving them prasadam, that's the way to please everyone. Just give everyone prasadam and invite them to do kirtan, and they're going to be happy. So there's a little recipe from Prabhupada about how to please all kinds of people. And then he says, Achutya Priya Bandhava, keeping friendship with those who are Achutya Priya, with those who are dear to the Lord. That means devotees. So having friends with devotees. And Prabhupada says this is the purpose of ISKCON, to give people the chance to live in the association of devotees, especially in ashrams where you can develop deep, lasting friendships and very deep spiritual connections. And by these connections, by the association, by having really nice devotee friends, you'll automatically become Krishna conscious. You see this works so many times. Just anybody who somehow or other gets sadhu sangha, they become a devotee, because that's what it is. Shraddha, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartana vritti, nishta, and then on up to prema. So that's how it works. And then by all these things, then yanti anjasa achyuta padam, then one can easily go to the abode of the Lord. So Dhruva had these qualifications. He was Krishna Parayana, and so he attained Vaikuntha. Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna Parayana means going forward towards the goal of Krishna. And so where is he going? He's going to Dhruva Loka. And we're hearing some of the descriptions of what Dhruva Loka is like. And one thing is, it's self-effulgent. So all the spiritual planets are self-effulgent. Brajamanam Swarucha. You have this word in Dhammadarastika that we're singing now, right? Lasat kundalam gokule brajamanam. It's the same word, brajamanam, means shining. So the translation is, it's about Lord Damodar Krishna, who's shining in the realm of Gokul. So in the same way, Dhruva Loka is shining, brajamanam. It's the Chudamanir, the crest jewel of the three worlds, and it's circumambulated by all the other planets. So the Lord and his devotee are literally the center of the universe. All the planets, all the sages, everything is just circumambulating the Lord. Even now, our Earth planet is circumambulating Dhruva Loka. It's in its revolution, it's going around the Vaikuntha planet. So Dhruva Maharaj, he attained this perfection, and his spiritual master Narada Muni is very pleased. So now we're going to see Narada Muni speaking, and speaking like a proud father. He's very proud of his disciples' achievements. So someone please read text 40 to 43.
After observing the glories of Dhruv Maharaj, the great sage Narada, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. The great sage Narada said, simply by the influence of his spiritual advancement and powerful austerity, Dhruv Maharaj, the son of Suniti, who was devoted to her husband, acquired an exalted position, not possible to attain even for the so-called Vedantist or strict followers of the Vedic principles, not to speak of ordinary human beings. The great sage Narada continued, just see how Dhruv Maharaj aggrieved at the harsh words of his stepmother, went to the forest at the age of only 5 years, and under my direction underwent austerity. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unconquerable, Dhruv Maharaj defeated him with the specific qualification possessed by the Lord's devotees. Dhruv Maharaj attained an exalted position at the age of only 5 or 6 years, after undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, a great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position even after undergoing austerities for many, many years.
So here, Narada Muni, he went to this sacrifice that was being held by the Prachetas, and he's just like boasting about Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj is so great. At the age of 5 or 6 years, he did these austerities. Who can do that? Even a greatest Kshatriya can't do that. And he says, he acquired a position. He went back, he got this spiritual planet that even the so-called strict followers of the Vedic principles, they don't have any chance of attaining that kind of position in the spiritual world. So here in this verse, text 41, the word used is Veda Vadina. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that this word is very significant because, he says, generally, the person who strictly follows Vedic principles is called Vedavadi. And that Dhruva Maharaj, he attained a position that wasn't attainable by the Vedavadinas, or the strict followers of Vedic principles. So yeah, that position was going back home, back to Godhead. So what Narada Muni is saying here is that you don't go back to Godhead just by following the Vedic principles. So this is something that we need to take very seriously because, there are some devotees in ISKCON nowadays who are really strongly promoting Vedic culture, and really going on a crusade about how devotees should not wear stitched cloth or eat non-deshi vegetables, or women shouldn't give classes or lead kirtans, or children shouldn't learn mundane academic subjects. Devotees shouldn't eat Western foods like pizza and pasta, or wear Western clothes, or play Western instruments like guitar and kirtan. But this is all Veda Vadina, or Krishna calls it Veda Vada Rata. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that being attached to the Vedas without understanding the purport of the Vedas. So what is the purport of the Vedas? Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedyo. The purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. The purpose of the Vedas is not to tell you that pizza is bad, or that women can't give class, or that you can't wear clothes that are sewn with a needle and thread. That's not the ultimate purpose of the Vedas. You know what I mean? The purpose is to go to Krishna. So and it's interesting that these devotees, they really go on a thing. There's a whole website that's called Vedic ISKCON, and I don't recommend that you look at it because it's just toxic. It's like Vaishnav Aparad, one after another. Practically, they go through every ISKCON guru in our movement and point out ways in which they are not Vedic and therefore fallen. And it's just hideous. It's just in the name of Vedic. If that's what Vedic is, I don't want to be Vedic. If Vedic means that you just offend everybody, who's dedicated their lives to spreading Krishna consciousness, then I'm sorry, sign me up for something else because I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that mentality. And while they're making these websites and criticizing devotees who they see as not Vedic, the very devotees that they're criticizing, the ones who are wearing the stitched cloth and going out and preaching, who are eating their pizza prasadam, the women who are giving Srimad Bhagavatam classes, they're all paving their own way back to Godhead, whereas the other ones are staying here for another birth. So it's kind of ironic. It's like that story of the cobbler and the Brahmin becomes so surprised that he's not going back to Godhead, and the cobbler is, because the cobbler is actually thinking about Krishna, whereas the Brahmin is just thinking, I'm so great because I'm a Brahmin, and this cobbler is so low and dirty because he touches shoes. So it's like Krishna sees things differently. He doesn't necessarily think that the Brahmin is the best. He sees what the consciousness is, and he doesn't really care about the body because he understands that this body is just insignificant. It's just a temporary material lump. And we've had so many different bodies over so many different lives. Who cares about this one? The important thing is our Krishna consciousness. So, and as far as, adjusting things, like eating pizza, pasta, wearing Western clothes or whatever, we read that purport in the 8th chapter, 4.854, that talks about how the details can be adjusted. We can adjust the details according to time, place, in order to help people become Vaishnavas, in order to make them Vaishnavas. So this is the purpose. We have to the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna and to give us a philosophy and practices by which we can become Krishna conscious and help others to become Krishna conscious. And we can only know Krishna when Krishna reveals himself to us. And he's only going to reveal himself to us when he's pleased with us. And he's only going to be pleased with us when we follow the instructions of the Mahajanas like Narada Muni, who say things like, yeah, you need to adjust the details according to time, place, and circumstances. He's not going to be pleased with us when we oppress and alienate people with certain bodies or people from certain cultural backgrounds in the name of being Vedic. So this is very important for us to understand if we want to go back to Godhead. You know, Vedic culture is the culture that sees everyone as spirit souls, as eternal servants of Krishna. It's the culture that uplifts everyone in the service of Krishna. It's a culture of respect. That respects all souls, regardless of their bodies, and supports them in, you know, in individual ways to make progress back to Godhead. So please don't become Vedavadinas or Vedavadaratas. Narada Muni condemns them here, and Krishna condemns them in the Bhagavad Gita. He says in chapter 242, he says, men of small knowledge are attached to these petty external things. And he says, after all, Trigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas anyways deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. So when we're talking about like what foods we eat, what clothes we wear, what kind of instruments we play, that's all external, you know, that's all like within the three modes of material nature. We can read about that in Bhagavad Gita, that food's in the mode of passion, food's in the mode of ignorance. So like, doesn't matter. The point is we have to offer foods in the mode of goodness to Krishna. Everything becomes prasadam. So, and then, so the point is we need to follow the mission and the example of our founder Acharya. And we just heard that our founder Acharya, he was very supportive of women. He wanted them to, you know, be gurus and be leaders and give classes, and he established that. You know, when Mother Yamuna was singing the Govindam prayers, one of the devotees was complaining that, oh, Prabhupada, I don't think it's good that we hear this woman's voice. And Prabhupada said, no, this voice is transcendental, and this woman's voice should be heard in every one of our temples at the greeting of the deities. And Prabhupada personally established that. So, you know, that's the example of Prabhupada. He you know, and sometimes he told his disciples specifically that when you go to preach at universities in America, don't go with dhoti and kurta, wear Western clothes. And when devotees bought the LA temple, the Los Angeles temple, it was a church. So when they bought it, it still had the pews, you know, those long benches that they have in churches that everyone sits on. And Prabhupada said, leave the pews here and let people come in with their shoes on, sit comfortably on the pews and hear Bhagavad Gita class. That was Prabhupada's vision. But the devotees, it's like, no, we have to be more Vedic than Prabhupada. And they took out all the pews and they made it into like a, Vedic style temple. So, I mean, whatever, but that wasn't Prabhupada's program. You know, Prabhupada was like really open to adjusting these things, and he set the example for how to do it. So literally, that's what it means to follow the Vedas. It means Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, that we follow the Acharya. We follow, true religious principles are given by the Acharya. And so if we want to go back to Godhead, we really have to understand these points. So, all right. So now Narada Muni, he's glorifying Dhruva about how he's conquered the unconquerable Lord, like Mother Yashoda conquers Krishna by her love. So Dhruva also similarly conquered the Lord, and the Lord likes to be conquered. He's eager for us to conquer him. He likes being subordinate because everybody's worshiping him. Like, you know, everybody who's a devotee is like 95% of them, they're like, you know, oh Lord, please be merciful, you know. So it's very rare a devotee that comes to the level of chastising him, you know, like Mother Yashoda chastises him, or like the gopis of Vrindavan sometimes speak sharp words to Krishna. But he says that those words are more pleasing to him than the Vedic hymns. So that's a very exalted position. And how do we achieve that position? Not all at once. It's step by step. And the first step is Ado Guru Ashrayam. We need to take shelter of a guru, follow the instructions of a guru, take initiation. That's the process that Dhruva followed. And And also, yeah, take initiation in disciplic succession, not just someone who's initiated by Prabhupada, but someone who's an actual follower who understands Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. So, Narada Muni was pleased. We want to try to make our gurus pleased with us. That's the goal, that we want our gurus to think about us and become happy. And when they go somewhere, we want our gurus to tell them, oh, I have this disciple, Antaryami Balaram Das, and he's doing this and that and this and that. And I'm so pleased with him. I'm so proud of him. He's made so much spiritual advancement. He's taken a big responsibility, and he's like really doing amazing things. We want our gurus to talk about us like that to others, the way that do. So we need to do amazing things, be amazing devotees. I mean, I'm sure you are already, but just saying, just keep it in our consciousness to really try to become as serious and sincere in following the instructions of the spiritual master as Dhruva Maharaj was. And then, like Prabhupada said twice, that we can achieve the same thing that Dhruva Maharaj achieved, of going back to Godhead. So, the time went. Anyways, now we're coming to the close here. We're just going to read the Phala Shruti. That's the remainder of there's a long Phala Shruti for this section. So someone please read 44 to 52.
The great sage Maitra continued, my dear Vidura, whatever... Okay, Prabhuji, please read.
You can continue, Mataji. No problem.
Please read. I have already read.
The great sage Maitra continued, my dear Vidur, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruv Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruv Maharaj. By hearing the narration of Dhruv Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruvaloka, which was achieved by Dhruv Maharaj just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Anyone who hears the narration of Dhruv Maharaj and who repeatedly tries with faith and devotion to understand his pure character attains the pure devotional platform and executes pure devotional service. By such activities, one can diminish the threefold miserable conditions of material life. Anyone who hears this narration of Dhruv Maharaj acquires exalted qualities like him. For anyone who desires greatness, prowess, or influence, here is the process by which to acquire them. And for thoughtful men who want adoration, here is the proper means. The great sage Maitreya recommended one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruv Maharaj both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care in a society of Brahmins or other twice-born persons. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruv Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon day, on the day after Ekadashi, on the appearance of the Shravan star, at the end of a particular tithi, or the occasion of Vyatipat at the end of the month, or on Sunday. Such recitation should of course be performed before a favorable audience. When recitation is performed this way, without professional motive, the reciter and audience become perfect. The narration of Dhruv Maharaj is sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. The transcendental activities of Dhruv Maharaj are well known all over the world, and they are very pure. In childhood, Dhruv Maharaj rejected all kinds of toys and playthings, left the protection of his mother, and seriously took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. My dear Vidur, I therefore conclude this narration, for I have described to you all its details.
Right. Thank you. So Srila Prabhupada says that all ambitions desired by great persons can be fulfilled simply by understanding the narration of Dhruva Maharaj. So all ambitions. And here we see in this Falashruti that there's quite a range, of things that can be attained by by hearing this pastime. So this is a very powerful pastime. And you can go back and circle those phalas, those fruits that are according to your taste that you would like. And here we have some nice instructions too, some guidelines on how to recite pastimes like this, that with faith, in text 46 it says, with faith and devotion, repeatedly, and trying very hard to understand. So yeah, those are some things. And text 48 says also, with great attention and care in a society of Brahmins, especially Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada writes there that the purpose of ISKCON is to create Brahmins, to create Vaishnavas, so that we can hear these things in the association of Vaishnavas. We should recite them both in morning and evening. So our day should be like a sandwich in between. They should be the bread that holds our lives together, our daily bread. Text 49 to 50 says, without taking remuneration, in other words, not as a professional reciter, not as a business. That I'll only do this if you pay me. Otherwise, forget it. We should recite with a mood of taking shelter of the Lord, praying to the Lord for guidance. Like when you give class, really pray to the Lord. That's why we say the Mangala Charana, and we do some invocation before speaking, because during that time we're praying intensely to the Lord and the Acharyas to bless our power of speaking, to be able to recite properly in a way that's pleasing. Especially on auspicious days, it says to recite and before a favorable audience. So all of you are Bhakti Vaibhava students, assuming you're a favorable audience, otherwise you wouldn't be here. This is all voluntary. And then it says, what should be our motivation for speaking? Text 51 answers that, Kripa lor dinanatasya. Our motivation should be kindness, compassion, a desire to uplift and protect the poor, ignorant mass of people, to lead them to the path of truth. Literally says that sat pate, to lead them to the path of the absolute truth, path that will lead them to the absolute truth. And it specifically says that this is pleasing to the demigods. So this is an example of watering the root of the tree, that by reciting Bhagavatam, specifically the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, in the right way, in the right consciousness, then that's very pleasing to the demigods, as well as to the Lord. So I'm just going to conclude here by reading the text 54 purport. Prabhupada writes, it is said by Chanakya Pandit that life is certainly very short for everyone. But if one acts properly, his reputation will remain for a generation. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is everlastingly famous, so the reputation of Lord Krishna's devotee is also everlasting. Therefore, in describing Dhruva Maharaj's activities, two specific words have been used. Vikhyata, very famous, and Vishuddha, transcendental. Dhruva Maharaj is leaving home at a tender age and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the forest is a unique example in this world. So we're very fortunate to have this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, a unique example in this world, which has been noted down in the eternal text of Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of all human beings in this world. And we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to read it and discuss it together and get all these wonderful benefits. So my apologies for being a little over time. But I'm open for any questions or comments if you have. Otherwise,
Thank you
thank you very
so
much.
Thank you so very much, Mataji, for being very merciful, for accepting an invitation, for giving us, for taking this wonderful, beautiful chapters. I was, when the chapter was, I was reading before, so I was thinking that the yakshas are there. I had never clue that it could be so beautiful. So it was so interested. Yes, Mataji, it was so interesting, and you made it so interested. Thank you so very much for engaging us in discussions, so many discussions, taking all the questions, all the queries very humbly. Thank you so very much, Mataji. Sorry, I'm still a little greedy and want to really request you to please bless us with your association again.
Yeah, maybe I'll see you in the next module. If you can tolerate all my controversial points.
It's a blessing, Mataji. It's a Krishna's blessing that we are taking sessions from you. Thank you so much, Mataji.
That's the fun part, right? I remember that when I took Bhakti Vaibhava, my teacher, he totally just skipped over. He would just skip over anything that was slightly controversial. He would just hope that we didn't notice it and just jump to the next verse very quickly. So, but these are important things because these are the topics that come up. These are the issues that we're dealing with, like in the here and now, so we need to understand them from a proper perspective. And I don't mind if you don't agree with me, but at least try to understand. Prabhupada says that we should study his books from all different viewpoints, and that's what it means to be intelligent. That's intellectual. A person who's a scholar and intellect, they want to understand things from other points of view. They want to hear other people's perspectives on things. So even if we don't agree, at least we understand each other. And so then we can work together. We can still serve together. We're not going to just like reject each other. Like right now, I mean, over this Vaishnavi Diksha Guru is practically like there's like threats that, one group of devotees is going to leave ISKCON, split off, start their own thing. It's just like outrageous. What would Prabhupada be saying if he was here now and hearing this kind of like words going on, these threats? It's like, are you kidding? It must be so painful to Prabhupada. We need to at least agree to disagree and go on serving together. Or at least if it's not good for us here, like Prabhupada said in that purport for 854, not everything that works in India is going to work in the West. Fine, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. If it works for someone else, do it. It's all about, the principle is accept what's favorable for Krishna consciousness and reject what's unfavorable. And that's different for different people. It's different for people in different cultures. So, I'm really happy for someone to do whatever works, whatever makes Krishna consciousness most accessible for them and for people that they come in contact with. I'm not going to have a problem with that. But I hope that no one's having a problem with me accepting what's favorable for my situation and for others in my situation. So it's just a question of understanding each other's needs, understanding each other's, situations, and being a little open-minded and accommodating. And but that can only happen if there's love, and that's why we need to really be more Krishna conscious, because, we can only love each other when we love Krishna. Otherwise, this bodily concept of life will prevail. We need to really see our intrinsic, deep connection, eternal connection with Krishna and with each other. And then we can have love and understanding, and everything will go forward nicely.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so I shall take your leave with your permission, and I wish you all the best for the remaining. You still have a lot to go. The other half of the fourth canto, plus 5 and 6 to complete your Bhakti Vaibhava. So best wishes, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
I guess Prabhupada Priya Mataji ki jai.
Well.